Alright, in this video I'm going to do something a little different. I want to have multiple witnesses to establish the picture I'm painting here. So what I did is I took clips from 3 users who do internet videos and put them together to paint this picture. I'm using user God's Roadmap to the End Times, probably Alexandra, and Antichrist 45, and I can't remember the second part of his name. It's Antichrist 45, and my bad. But anyway, I'm going to put the links to their sites or to their channels in the description so you can check them out for yourself. I don't agree with these users 100% on their Christian doctrine. So if you go to them and they're saying something and you come to me with that, don't. Chances are I'm not in agreement with them either. But when it comes to this, I'm in agreement with them. And that's why I'm putting together this. So we have multiple witnesses pointing to this. So with that being said, I'm going to jump into it. Hope you enjoy it. And I think it's going to be long. I think it might be 2+ hours long. So you might have to pause here and there, digest the information, get to it when you can, but it'll be worth it. So I don't need to say it now. Thanks for watching and take care, but I should pop in later and do that. So enjoy it.
In December of 2018, The Economist magazine designed this cover to tell the world about their plans for the future. And even though it says that it concerns the world in 2019, we know that what is shown on this cover was certainly not limited to 2019 and covered much of what happened over the next 3 years that followed. Although much of what is shown to us on this cover has now occurred, there is one specific aspect that the entire world took notice of on September 26th of 2022, and that is the sabotage of what is known to the world as Putin's pipelines. Think about that for a while. Back in December of 2018, The Economist magazine pointed out that Putin's pipelines would play a role in the future. And on September 26th of 2022, most of these pipelines have been rendered inoperable, bringing about a sharp intensification in the tension that exists between Russia and the West. Since these pipelines were sabotaged, the rhetoric between Russia and the West has seen some serious escalation, and the world is now truly on the brink of World War III. The main focus of the past 3 years had of course to do with the Vitruvian Man that features on the center of this cover, whose eyes are covered so that he cannot see the truth, and the symbol shown to us on his arm, showing a portion of it being deleted if we look closely. Now, it is interesting that the number one problem listed on a list of about 1,200 issues from one of the companies that supplied snake oil to the world over the past 3 years is the deletion of this gene. So what happens to a person who loses this part of the code that constitutes their body? It is a disorder that typically causes severe intellectual disability. Most affected individuals do not speak, or speak only a few words. They may have temper tantrums, bite themselves, or exhibit other behavioral problems. Most have structural abnormalities of the brain, and seizures occur in more than half of individuals with this disorder. Could this be the reason why the CNDNC had this webpage on their website for almost a decade before taking it down recently? Because it may be a little too obvious to those who are beginning to ask questions about what is happening to people in the world and to make those connections. This is however not the only plan of the enemy when it comes to messing with the building blocks that God created for our bodies. In this paper from 2008, it is explained how a triple helix will represent the design of the new molecule of life, and in this paper it is explained how research on this started back in 1993, and in today's terms, this would certainly not classify as new technology. In this article from 2015, there is speculation about the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency modifying people to create zombie super soldiers. This is a portion of what is shared in this article. Business Finance News reports that DARPA has begun a heavily funded project to enhance human abilities in war zones by altering the genetic code or recipe of their soldiers. The aim is to achieve battlefield supremacy by making soldiers who lack empathy and are smarter, more focused, and much stronger than enemy counterparts. And in this video that came out of North Korea a little over a year ago, evidence of these soldiers may very well be on display. The enemy also shows us how this new molecule of life will be utilized when we consider the image on the coin that was minted to commemorate the Abraham Accords, which also provoked God's judgment to begin over the earth. Here you can see the new molecule of life, and you will see that one of the strands, the synthetic addition, is connected to circuitry. And what this shows us is how what used to be human biology will be altered so that it can interface and be controlled by an artificial intelligence that will soon control every aspect of people's lives that are connected to it. Also notice whose signature is on this coin, and it is then no surprise that Trump has been pushing the snake oil agenda, as he is one of those who are behind this plan to enslave humanity. In this image from the cover of The Economist magazine for the world in 2017, we see the same imagery once again. We have the virtual reality goggles on a person who is known as the magician, who is printing 3D houses, which I believe is a reference to new synthetic bodies. And when we consider that God's word tells us that our bodies are the temples or homes for the Holy Spirit, one can easily deduct the message behind this image. Those who have received their new houses by the person wielding the scepter will no longer be able to die, given that we have an infinity symbol behind him and pointing us to these passages in God's word.
And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God.
Our enemy is not omnipresent, but using AI and integrating people on a cellular level with AI, he will be able to control all of humanity. And I believe that what happened to the world over the past 3 years allowed the enemy to install his equipment in a very large portion of the populace. And this integration between biology and artificial intelligence being shown to us as the final step in the enemy's plan on the coin that commemorated the Abraham Accords. It is also interesting to hear who the enemy associates with the magician. In the next clip, Marina Abramovich, a high-level Satanist, gives the identity of the magician from the enemy's perspective. And interestingly, the same person is also featured on this card sitting as ruler of the world.
You know, I just to share with you one really funny opinion. But there is in Lapland, there is a group of the shamans there who do something called collective dreaming. They will go together in seclusion and do the rituals with, eating very little food and being in a solitude for a long time. And they will go and dream the dreams. And the dream have to be collective, same dream. So coming out of this dream, once of the shaman told me that actually the best thing happened in this planet right now is the Trump to be the president. I said, how is this possible? It's the best thing to happen. He said, yes, because he's so irrational, he's so crazy. That's actually create that awakening, that we finally wake up. Because before it will be another guy and everything looks similar. But he's so different than anything else. So he's the magician who waking us up. What do you think about that?
With regards to Trump being the magician who will wake the world up or who will remove the blindfolds from the world's eyes, one has to ask, what will the magician wake the world up to? And I will get to that in a bit. There is a lot more that I could show relating to Trump, but in the interest of time, I will not discuss him further right now.
I've given my opinion as why I think Q and Trump are with the second beast mentioned in the book of Revelation 13, verses 11 through 18, also called the false prophet system or the alliance. With that in mind, I think it's a good time to discuss the phenomenon that is the cult of Kek and how Trump and Q figure into it. But first, this. Q likes to use the phrase, "these people are sick," in reference to the deep state, the cabal, or the first beast. On March 2nd of 2019, President Trump gave a speech at CPAC and used this exact same phrase.
These people are sick.
Interestingly, on March 4th, 4 days later, another source used this exact same phrase. The Illuminati. Some wish for swifter justice against humanity's oppressors, but crushing the worker ants does not stop the queens. These people are sick, and their predatory infection must be sterilized by the light. If they hide among us, we will continue to drag them out from our own ranks. In my video, Trump is Not a Savior, I explained how there were two versions of the New World Order, the dark and the light. The Illuminati is now aligned with the false prophet system, the second beast of Revelation 13, or the light New World Order, as opposed to the Cabal, the first beast, and the dark New World Order. Speaking of Illuminati, a card game called The Illuminati New World Order was released in 1995 by Steve Jackson Games. It's pretty controversial considering the playing cards show events such as 9/11, which at the time hadn't happened yet. But I wanted to show you this card called the Frog God. Who is the Frog God? Let's find out. According to Egyptian occult history, Kek is one of the 4 frog gods and is the deification of the concept of primordial darkness. He was the god of the darkness of chaos, the darkness before time began. The Egyptians saw the nighttime, a time without the light of the sun, as a reflection of this chaotic darkness. As a god of the night, Kek was also related to the day. He was called the bringer in of the light. He was responsible for the time of night that came just before sunrise, or the dawn, from dark to light. Around 2015, a sad-looking cartoon frog started trending on 4chan and 8chan. According to Reddit, Pepe is a cartoon of an indie comic that evolved into an internet meme popular on 4 and 8chan's political boards. The word Kek originally had nothing to do with Pepe. It came from the video game World of Warcraft, which has 2 major political factions. That sounds familiar. The Horde and the Grand Alliance. If a Horde player typed LOL in the chat, Alliance players would see it as Kek, to symbolize the language barrier. 4chan adopted it as an alternative to LOL or Laugh Out Loud. Pepe was also a popular meme at this point, but had no real connection to Kek. In October of 2015, Trump tweeted this. The Chan boards were surprised that the presidential candidate had used Pepe. They went one step further when they realized that their favorite phrase was also the name of the Egyptian frog god of chaos. As a result, the 2 memes were combined. Now here's where it starts to get weird. Someone on the Chans found a vinyl from 1986. It was an Italian pop song called Chatelet, made by an Italian artist named Pepe. The album art was a frog with a magic wand.
Remember the magic wand? What, you gonna get a magic wand? Yeah, I got a magic wand.
The artist's name on the vinyl is actually an acronym. That stands for Point Emerging, Probably Entering. No one has figured out what Chatelet means, but let's have a look at the lyrics. They're actually translated from Italian. Cosmic absolute, regular reality. Breath of an image or concept. Syntony of civilizations. Confused descendants of rebel cells, I fly towards the universe, I'll pass through it. If you are a star, show yourself. I will stop. And then the chorus goes on to say, Chatelet, Chatelet, my freedom. But at the bottom, this poster says, gentlemen, we need to decipher the message. By the way, it's literally happening. Memes have transcended reality. I won't attempt to decipher the lyrics, but I do find it interesting that they mention an image, and they use the word syntony, which is an archaic form of synchronicity. It also reads like an ode to freedom. Every post on a Chan board is given a unique ID and number. Users try to get posts with repeating digits or dubs. Sometimes they get trips, which is 3s, or quads, 4 repeating digits. On the politics board in particular, if a post has an impressive repeating number, it's considered a sign of approval from Kek. This post from June of 2016, 5 months before the election, tagged many other posts and simply said, Trump will win. This post got an incredible 8 sevens in the stamp. Not only that, but the user ID ends with QEK, which could be pronounced as Kek. The cult of Kek was officially born, and this post became known as the Kek Prophecy. Q specifically started posting on 4chan because Anons are known to be computer masters, as they know how to dig for information. They also start and destroy trends due to their ability to influence social media platforms. They're quite skeptical, so Q knew that if he could get the Anons on board, he could get anybody. That's why it's a big deal that the politics board hailed Donald Trump as nothing less than God's chosen candidate. But not Yahweh, or the Hebrew God's chosen candidate, but Kek, the Egyptian frog lightbringer god. After Keck's 2016 apparent approval of Donald Trump for president, by rewarding that post with 8 sevens, this one post says, "Stop, please, I didn't believe in meme magic at first. I thought you were all joking. Then Trump won his first primary and I thought, that's a coincidence. Then he became the candidate and I thought things were getting weird. Now Hillary is getting sick and the media is talking about Pepe. It's clear as day your memes are messing with the fabric of reality. You're messing with powers you don't understand. If you keep this up, you could meme us all out of existence." To explain some of this phenomenon's power, we have to look at the spiritual side of things, just like Ephesians 6:12 says. "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." So what's one small way these principalities or these fallen angels influence or interfere with humanity? That's through magic. No, not this type of magic. That's not really magic, that's just disgusting. Like I said, magic. Right, yes, maga. In Latin, the feminine form of magic is maga.
Right, I figured this would be a good time to intersect this right here, that MAGA is the 5th degree of the Church of Satan. Starts off active member, a Satanist. Then you become a witch slash warlock, a priestess slash priest, magistra slash magister, and then at the 5th rank you're magus. And if you're not familiar, that's these guys with Anton LaVey there. And they're doing their weird thing that they're doing there. Just wanted to add this in there.
The specific type of magic that's being used is called chaos magic, and Pepe is no less than a sigil.
Knowing what you know about chaos magic, would you consider the saga to be in line with what you might expect?
It is the most perfect example of chaos magic working that you could ever imagine.
In modern usage, especially in the context of chaos magic, a sigil refers to a symbolic representation of the magician's desired outcome. What magic does is enhance the probability of certain outcomes over others. The author of a website called Pepe the Frog Faith says, "You live in a world where a group of internet misfits meme magicked a celebrity madman into the White House with the help of an ancient Egyptian deity."
Life is really unpredictable, and people can make forecasts and they can make predictions, but those predictions and forecasts may not come true if there's an unforeseeable factor involved. And that unforeseeable factor in this case was
Pepe. The way magic works is a mix of psychology, quantum physics, and spiritual elements. That's because real magic comes from plain and simple human attention. How you look at reality shapes in ways we're only just beginning to understand. Not because it's unknown, but because that information and that science has literally been occulted from us. Hillary, a high-level witch and programmer herself, knew the power of the Pepe sigil and tried her best to stop it. On September 13 of 2016, she dedicated a page on her campaign website explaining Pepe in response to a meme Donald Trump Jr. posted on Instagram. Pepe is a cartoon frog who began his internet life as an innocent meme enjoyed by teenagers and pop stars alike. But in recent months, Pepe's been almost entirely co-opted by the white supremacists who call themselves the alt-right. They've decided to take back Pepe by adding swastikas and other symbols of anti-Semitism and white supremacy. And just like that, Trump and his supporters were tied to white nationalism. Recently, that's been happening again. Hillary's gamble with Pepe didn't pay off. It only made the sigil stronger. Practitioners of magic call this the boomerang effect. And the Chan board said that was the moment her campaign was doomed. By essentially cursing the meme, it came back to destroy her.
Meme magic, in the most basic definition, is the idea that through the power of memes, people can tap into a collective unconsciousness and alter reality. And 2016 was a year very much defined by its memes. Unbeknownst to most, there arose a meme war across some of the most popular websites, blogs, forums, and social media networks on the internet. The main players in this continuing metaphysical conflict are identified by some as the servants of Moloch, which include the antiquated mainstream media, Hollywood, and paid partisan organizations. The opposition is the cult of Keck, made up of various divergent factions of internet ideologues and mimetic agents of chaos. Both sides here are engaged in forcing memes and creating intentional disruption in online discussion to not only influence opinion, but to shape perception.
He described the power of memes and referred to the first beast of Revelation, or the Cabal, as the servants of Moloch, and the opposition as the cult of Kek, or the second beast of Revelation. Two distinct sides, two beasts of Revelation. Moloch represents the Antichrist kingdom, while Kek represents the false prophet kingdom. The concept of light and the phrase "and the Fed" work in a very similar way to meme magic. They're used to give consent to following the light or to ending the centralized banking system, bringing in the quantum financial reset, or, in my opinion, the mark of the beast. Q associated Pepe with Trump and then turned it up a notch. An Anon posted this picture of the White House bakers and noticed that there's a frog on the baker's jacket. Q confirms this and asks, "Pepe the baker?" The Anons on Q boards are called bakers, since they take the crumbs of information that Q drops and add more information in a process referred to as baking. This is the power of memes and programming. When lots of people see the same thing over and over, it becomes a part of the collective conscious. It becomes reality. My opinion is that Q is deceiving humanity into following them and putting people's hopes in their agenda. After all, anyone who still really trusts in Trump or believes in politics isn't really awake, are they? After all, politics is just the illusion of choice. Disclaimer, this channel is probably not for you if you're still on the Trump train. Why Pepe? Why Kek? There are literally thousands of gods and symbols to choose from. Why choose the ones specifically referenced in the Hebrew Bible in relation to the false prophet system? Revelation 16:13-14 says, "And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the spirits of devils, working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty." Strong's Concordance defines frogs as literal frogs, so something that looked to John like a literal frog is the correct interpretation as far as I'm concerned. Q is encouraging all of humanity to bring down the Cabal, as if this task were possible for humans to complete alone. Q claims that they, or we, are saving humanity, all while quoting from a book that is against that very idea. The Bible is a book which says that humanity cannot and will not save itself. It's a book that teaches one how to remove themselves from the spiritual and physical slavery humanity finds itself in. It teaches to reject the things of this world, such as the love of money or the greed for material things, like riches that are promised after the acceptance of the coming debt forgiveness and worldwide financial reset. 1 John 2:15 says, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him," and bases its conclusion on the culmination of a physical event when Yahusha or Jesus Christ returns. Then justice will be served. Q promotes the idea that we are here to save or fix humanity. Justice belongs to the military. Monetary, materialistic rewards are good and deserved. And because people have been conditioned to think that the opposite of bad is good, they believe that since the Cabal or the deep state is bad, then Q and the Alliance are good. Just because the Cabal is satanic does not mean the Alliance is holy. Instead, like the Roman god Janus, Lucifer is a two-faced god that controls both beast systems. Q is an abstract concept. No one even knows what is talking to us. This image was given a mouth to speak, and the whole world has been deceived by the miracles promised by Q. Certainly we humans can take down centuries of black magic networks, with countless programmed slaves doing their bidding, in a few short years, and never bother to change our obey-consume mentality that got us here in the first place. But hey, it's cool, the world's ours now, right? Oh yeah, and all of this happened without Yahusha or Jesus telling us about it. Yeah, none of this historic upheaval, chaos, and change was written about anywhere. Oh wait, except it was literally right there. Though Q plays the hero and is saving the world, this is the greatest Hegelian dialectic in history. Lucifer is the mastermind behind the whole thing. The problem is the Cabal, or the first beast. The reaction? These people are sick, or realizing how corrupt the Cabal is, and the solution? Q. The false prophet system is promising you a false future with no Yahusha in sight. A world where Lucifer is the hero. What, we did it. We stopped the tribulation. Good job, guys. We're our own saviors. We don't need a savior. We shall be as gods. Yeah, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Ye shall be as gods. The New Age believes the kingdom of heaven is literally inside of us. The New Age says we are the saviors we've been waiting for. If you believe this to be true, then you have successfully completed your initiation into the mystery schools. That's been the plan all along, to exchange truth for lies, sweet for bitter, good for evil. The church helped to accomplish this because between the 1940s and the 1950s, the Illuminati infiltrated churches to make sure that generational control was maintained. For example, pastors are using Proverbs 13:22, which says, "A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just." Here we have another false prophet promising you a false future. One with inheritance, your children's children. It's a false future because you're assuming that there's going to be a future after this debt reset. After a worldwide financial reset. Again, denying Yahusha's return and being caught sleeping when you should have been watching. The reason this concept of light is so important in the Q movement is because most Q followers are theistic, just as anyone involved in Freemasonry must be. Those who don't believe in a god or any form of higher power aren't as involved in the Q movement. It's mostly religious people. The very people the false prophet system sets out to deceive. Remember, Revelation 13:11 says the beast of the earth has 2 horns like the lamb and speaks like the dragon. Alice Bailey, a famous theosophist, wrote in 1957 that the three main channels through which the preparation for the New Age is going on might be regarded as the church, the Masonic fraternity, and the educational field. She says there is no question, therefore, that the work to be done in familiarizing the general public with the nature of the mysteries is of paramount importance at this time. These mysteries will be restored to outer expression through the medium of the church and the Masonic fraternity. In place of Christianity, the mystery religions will be restored by the church and Freemasonry. By controlling education, those who are not controlled by the church or Masonry will be. As of 1957, she uses the future tense, but I would go ahead and say that this is now past tense. The book, The Spirit of Masonry, says, "They are therefore sometimes known as the Illuminati, and can direct the searchlight of truth wherever its beams are needed to guide the pilgrim on his way. They guide the candidate until he has gained the right to stand in the east before the presence, and there, before the brethren, prove himself initiate, stage by stage. They assist at the unfolding of the consciousness of the candidate until the time comes when he can enter into light, and in his turn become a light bearer, one of the Illuminati who can assist the lodge on high in bringing humanity to light." Well, I know someone else who's bringing humanity to light. Again, this is saying Illuminati as a universal collective, because there's not like an organization that is the Illuminati. It is, if you're an Illuminato or an Illuminata, together you are Illuminati. There are many Illuminati. Everyone of influence who is inside this order, who has been, quote, enlightened or is a bringer of light, who's been initiated, is in the Illuminati because they are Illuminati. Does that make sense? Side note, in witchcraft and in black magic, the 4 cardinal directions have 4 entities or fallen angels over them. The one in the east is Lucifer. And you can check out Ezekiel 8:16 to see what Yahweh has to say about people who worship facing east. The book Ancient Mystic Oriental Masonry says, in speculative Freemasonry, there is an advancement from a lower to a higher state, from darkness to light, from death to life, from error to truth. This light is not the light of Yahweh, but the inferior light of Lucifer, and should not be trusted. After all, he was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. Q does expose things that have been hidden. What's being exposed are only very small truths that have been known to the truther community before Q even came on the scene. Nothing will ever be revealed about the true history of space, or the true depths of trauma-based mind control, or the occulted knowledge of the medical system, because all of this has been occulted by the Alliance, or the light side. They have just as many secrets as the Cabal, but because they aren't as overtly satanic looking and disgusting, their secrets remain in the shadows, occulted, or in the darkness. Remember that in Yahweh or in God, there is no darkness at all. These benevolent secret societies have always existed and have had enough knowledge to put an end to human suffering. Yet they stood by and allowed the cabal to continue their genocide. In the first degree initiation of Freemasonry, the initiate is lost in darkness and seeking the light. Blindfolded, the initiate is led through the process of being reborn into the light. Humanity is now on a massive scale being initiated into the light, in the same way an adept is initiated into a mystery school. Whether people realize it or not, the entire world is being inducted into the mysteries thanks to Q, Keck, and Trump. This is the deception that's been planned by the New Age for over 100 years. Churches have been infiltrated to spread this deception because their pastors are more often than not Freemasons or from generational families, taught by the corrupt seminary system to continue the deception, just like Bailey wrote about. Isaiah warned, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil." In our world today, the evil and selfish call themselves good and humanitarian. Slaves to sin call themselves liberated. The foolish call themselves enlightened. Mortals call themselves God. And the oldest religions call themselves the New Age. And once again, these concepts have been rebranded and sold to us. Q's knowledge and talk of the light has nothing to do with Yahweh or God, but everything to do with deceiving the entire world into worshiping Lucifer. Well, that's a big claim. You know what else is big? Q's game encompasses the entire world. This will never happen again. Just because Q quotes from the Bible does not mean their actions are from Yahweh. Remember, this false prophet system looks like the Lamb, or appears Christian, but speaks as the dragon, or Lucifer. I know a lot of you are going to disagree with me, but that's okay. This information is not convenient. And I'm just trying to present you with information to think about, or look into some more. Don't believe me. Go out and do some research for yourself. Condemnation without investigation is called indoctrination. But for those of you who have felt like there's always been something a little off about Q, hopefully I've given you some things to look into and know that you are not alone. I know this is just barely scratching the surface, but hopefully some of this information can be useful to you. We're going to address the final concept now before moving on to the next phase of the game. The reason for discussing all we just did is to get to this point. That is the idea of mental manipulation. This is also sometimes called magic. Magic works via a mix of psychology, quantum physics, and spiritual elements. The three cannot be separated. Magic comes from plain and simple human attention.
Why is this concept fundamental?
Because the powers that be utilize mental manipulation to achieve their desired reality. This directly affects you and I. They execute their plans physically, but also mentally. These plans affect the macro operating system of the world, not an individual's microscale.
They could care less about you and I personally. They use us as collectives to complete a goal. Mental manipulation is one of those ways. Why don't you explain that with some backstory?
Okay, well, we just discussed polarity, which is only one example of the 7 principles that are the foundation of what's called Hermeticism, which is a branch of spiritual philosophy dating back as early as the 1st century AD. They were outlined by Hermes Trismegistus, who is believed to have written 2 influential ancient teachings, the Emerald Tablet and the Corpus Hermeticum, both of which theorize the foundational laws of our reality in what's called the 7 Hermetic Principles. His work would go on to influence ancient Greek and Egyptian cultures, with both adopting him as a god of wisdom. In Greece, he was called Hermes, and in Egypt, they called him Thoth. He was known in his time as a, quote, great master of the universe, end quote, and is said to have lived for thousands of years. He was Saint Germaine. He was worshipped as a god with his own pseudo-religion of Hermeticism. Over time, those principles were passed down esoterically from teacher to student, and eventually, sometime in the early 20th century, the teachings were compiled into a book called the Kybalion, written by the 3 initiates. This is important because the occultists in power utilize this system alongside other philosophical and spiritual systems to shape, or attempt to shape, reality. For example, the first principle, the principle of mentalism, states the universe is mental, and no, not like mad. The principle of mentalism states that the universe is akin to a mental projection and basically says, thoughts shape reality. Now this gets into the realm of quantum mechanics, and I'm not going to explain this any further. It's not necessary. For the purpose of this video, it is critically important to understand that the tier of architects, the super elite, use magic in the form of mental manipulation to shape our reality. This is why magical systems, such as the Kabbalah, are such a big deal to various occultists. They believe change in the outer world is facilitated by changes in the mental state. Luciferians use magic, the power of the mind, along with demonic and elemental forces to effect change. That being said, the fundamental concept here is mental transmutation, which is the art of transforming or changing the condition, quality, or nature of the mind from one condition to another. There are 2 steps involved in mental transmutation. 1, awareness, and 2, inversion. In order to transmute negative mental states into positive states, one must first be aware that they are experiencing a negative state. In order for something to change, one must be aware of it first. The second step is to polarize that state to the opposite state.
So, if the negative state is we are losing our freedom, our future, autonomy, safety, and security, and we have become aware of this, the positive, or the inversion, would be we regain our freedom, in quotes, that was taken in the first place. It seems like the powers that be are forcing the masses to become aware of the negative state by way of living through it. The next step would be inversion.
Since it's simple to identify the negative, it is simple to now understand the positive, as in the inversion of the negative state. Again, the problem is never the solution, but it leads you to it. Recall Hegel's dialectical principle of totality. Every stage, phase, or moment is partial and therefore partially untrue or unwhole. Our current reality is partially untrue. It's incomplete. So don't get caught up in the impermanence of what's happening at the moment. When things continue to change and shift more and more toward the light, don't let your guard down. It's not good. It's not getting better. It's the inversion. The inversion is from dark to light. Don't be blinded by that light. It's not the
Moving
light
on
of
to
God.
the Saint Germain connection.
The Count of Saint Germain was both a physical human count alive in the 1700s, but is also the name of one of the 12 great white brotherhood entities. You know, the ones called Ascended Masters. His followers believed his life as the Count in the 1700s is when he gained his mastery and became, quote, ascended.
In the early 1900s, the basis of what became known as the I Am movement was given to the founder, Guy Ballard, by channeling the Ascended Master Saint Germain. Theosophists believe that, as the world's hidden leaders, members of this mystical brotherhood guide the destiny of the world. If you're taking notes, go ahead and underline that sentence. Blavatsky and the others believe that, as the world's hidden leaders, members of this mystical brotherhood guided the destiny of the world, and it was Saint Germain who gave the philosophy of the I Am movement to its founder.
Just appreciate the blasphemy of even calling it the I Am movement. They will do anything to try and be God.
The Theosophists considered Saint Germain to be one of the hidden immortals who manipulate history. Saint Germain is known as the seventh ray, the angel over the time of the seventh trumpet of Revelation, which is the last trumpet, and this character is also the teacher of the Aquarian Age, as opposed to the Sananda Maitreya, who was the teacher of the Piscean Age, or the Jesus figure to them, and according to their lore, Saint Germain is his brother. Sanctus Germanus means holy brother, so not only does their lore state he's the Jesus character's brother, he is also holy. Germain had a hand in founding the Masons, the Rosicrucians, and the Knights Templar fraternal orders.
So Saint Germain taught Ballard about the great creative word, or I Am. The I Am presence is said to be in each person and represents a point of contact with divine reality. This is another rebranding of Christ consciousness.
The I Am movement was also interested in preserving the idea of America, which they called a revolutionary experiment in freedom, also known as the Great Masonic Experiment.
In 1958, Saint Germain used another messenger, Mark Prophet, who formed the Summit Lighthouse movement. Together with his wife, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, they formed the Church Universal and Triumphant, dedicated to Saint Germain, Theosophy, and the I Am presence. Elizabeth Clare Prophet describes Saint Germain as the violet flame, the Shohan of the seventh ray, and the sponsor of the United States.
Samuel, Columbus, Shakespeare, Bacon. Enter Saint Germain, sponsor of the United States of America. He is the seventh angel prophesied in Revelation, who comes to finish the mysteries of God.
The Masonic book Mystic Americanism falsely claims that the theme of the entire Bible centers around the hope of a glorious country far off, in an age that was to come, It essentially claims the woman in Revelation 12 who fled into the wilderness is to return, and in a glorious nation defeat the dragon by reopening the ancient teachings of the Holy Grail, which they call the illumination of the soul. This is the exact same story as the one from the Cave of Symbols.
Here we see the axis of dark versus light. The darkness, the dragon, is defeated by the resurrection of enlightenment, the illumination of the soul. Where is Jesus? Yet again, it is Christ consciousness. It is the enlightenment via the light we've been discussing. It's the impostor or the counterfeit savior. Another point to mention in this Masonic book is the importance placed on America to bring the mysteries to life and illuminate the world, or bring light to darkness. Notice the polar imagery on this cover page. The Masonic and Kabbalistic pillars Yashin and Boaz, the pillars of mercy and severity, man and woman, both humans differing in degree, day, night, Osiris, masculine, and Isis, feminine.
In the 1770s, his followers say that Saint Germain worked behind the scenes with George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Benjamin Franklin preparing the U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. He's a character very involved with the origins of America. According to MasonicSites.org, there's no question that Masonry contributed something to the structure and machinery of the American government. The Constitution of the United States, in a very real sense, is a Masonic document. In its final form, the Constitution represented the collective thoughts of Ben Franklin, Edmund Randolph, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and George Washington. Of these, all but Jefferson were not only active Masons, but men who took their Freemasonry extremely serious. The new republic, when it emerged with the Constitution, conformed to that ideal image, and that image reflected the ideals of Freemasonry, that the United States of America was and is the great Masonic experiment. Principles found in Plato's Republic and the book New Atlantis by Francis Bacon outline the foundation of the government of the United States. The founding principles of those works were not Christian, as many falsely believe, but part of the mystery religion. According to ScottishRite.org, the striking similarities between the Masonic constitutions and the Articles of Confederation, the U.S. Constitution, and the Bill of Rights display a revealing connection that has been hardly recognized or explicitly advertised. This is one of Freemasonry's public secrets that has agitated fundamentalists and conspiracists alike. The U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights are Masonic in origin and, by extension, not Christian.
Yes, I talked about this in the Antichrist investigation and in Inconvenient History. Back to Saint Germain.
Freemason Charles Ledbetter gives us their perspective on Saint Germain in his book, The Hidden Life of Freemasonry. Quote, "This business was always in the hands of the Chohan of the Seventh Ray, for that is the ray most especially connected with ceremonial of all kinds, and its head was always the supreme hierophant of the mysteries of ancient Egypt. The present holder of that office is the Master of the Wisdom, of whom we often speak as the Count of Saint Germain, because he appeared under that title in the 18th century. He is also sometimes called Prince Rakosi, as he is the last survivor of that royal house. Exactly when he was appointed to the headship of the ceremonial ray I do not know, but he took a keen interest in Freemasonry as early as the 3rd century AD. Ledbetter goes on to explain some of the many characters Saint Germain has influenced throughout history, such as Enki, Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, King Solomon, Plato, Merlin the Magician, Christopher Columbus, and Francis Bacon, or William Shakespeare, to name a few. And then he says, in co-masonry we refer to him as the head of all true Freemasons throughout the world, abbreviated as the HOATF. And in some of our lodges his portrait is placed in the east, above the chair of the RWM, Right Worshipful Master, and just beneath the star of initiation. Others placed it in the north, above an empty chair. Upon his recognition and ascent as head of the 7th ray, the validity of all rights and degrees depends.
The most revered placement in the lodge is reserved for Saint Germain. Not only that, he must be recognized as the Ascended Master, the head of the 7th ray, to validate their rights and degrees. Notice that Ledbetter capitalizes him and his. This small detail is called reverential capitalization, which is the practice of capitalizing religious words, particularly pronouns, that refer to a deity or divine being. Ledbetter insinuates that Saint Germain is the god of Freemasonry and, by extension, Theosophy. So the light they are working toward, that Kabbalistic end goal, is not God, but yet another facade of Lucifer. The New Age, being the daughter of Freemasonry, also claims Saint Germain is the Shohan of the Seventh Ray. Saint Germain, the Shohan of the Seventh Ray, holds a very important position in hierarchy in this age. Not only is he the Shohan of the Seventh Ray of Freedom, Mercy, Transmutation, and Ritual, but he is also the hierarch of the Aquarian Age.
According to Mysteries of Templar Treasure in the Holy Grail, a letter written in the late 1700s by occultist and alchemist Count Cagliostro claims that Saint Germain said himself he was many centuries old and had been at King Solomon's court when the Queen of Sheba paid her famous state visit there. Interestingly, an effort was made in the late 1700s to eliminate Saint Germain's name from modern Masonic literature when the Freemasons were taken over by darker factions. Remember, it's a game of balance, and as George Washington wrote in one of his letters, he was aware of this dark faction infiltrating society, and it was the dark's time to rise. In order to accomplish the goals required, the dark were the ones used to complete the tasks. You can't go from dark to light without the dark. Another reason for concealing the light side philosophies is because they remain esoteric when the ideas have spread throughout society and have become watered down. The withholding of information keeps it in the hands of the few and allows the dialectics to continue. Saint Germain, through various channeled messages, spoke of the Aquarian Age and that it will be governed by the Ascended Masters and not by the bankers and the Dark Brotherhood. Take a moment to digest the amount of information here. Saint Germain was one of the first to speak of an age governed by these light entities as opposed to the banks and negative totalitarian rule. The following is a quote from the New Age, allegedly attributed to Elizabeth Clare Prophet regarding Saint Germain. The quote says, "At the helm of this momentous purging of Earth's dark forces is the great and holy Master Sanctus Germanus, again appearing at this particular flashpoint, as he did in past history, to guide and protect us at the threshold of the New Age."
Is Saint Germain's modus operandi present in the world once more? The answer might be yes. This movement is very much alive. The main goal of the Universal Brotherhood through things like Masonry, Theosophy, and all other occult societies is to spread the, quote, light. Nothing has initiated the masses into mystic thought faster or made the world more aware of its negative state and has been more widespread than the Great Awakening that began in 2017 with the government operation of something called Q. This section is for those familiar with the concepts of this operation, not those who got stuck at any of the hit pieces and false information about it. It's for those who continuously research the movement because it is a part of this massive game. This is an important piece of reality many are dismissing or idolizing. Both are dangerous.
An anon shows us an example of this polarized thinking. This is exactly where we're at, Patriots. Most going on seems lost and hopeless at times. Remember where we were in 2015. Some of the exact same rhetoric was being used then. There is no point in voting because history has it rigged. The deep state is too strong. Then together we rose up and created the greatest energy shift in the history of the world. We overcame the fraud, we overcame the MSM, we overcame the dark.
The greatest energy shift. This anon is describing a pole shift.
What do we know? A pole has two sides like a battery. You don't fight a war with one side. There's always a narrative and a counter-narrative. The Q movement represents the counter-narrative to the mainstream. If you think that the information posted by Q is new or originated with this movement, you are uninformed. Primary literature of the occultists shows that this is one of the oldest ideologies around, the return of the light. There are many ways this is being accomplished. The Q operation is just one of them.
This will bridge the gap from concept to concrete reality. So now that we've gone through all the parts that make up this game, the next piece is how does it apply to our lives? If you want to know the dark side of the war's exoteric narrative, you can watch the news or read their columns. But you're only getting one side of the propaganda. This is daft because if you have not applied everything we've already gone through on this board, you're missing the overall goal and maybe participating in the game without knowing it. You're in danger of falling for the solution to the problem. Let's look at how the other side, the light side's propaganda, is shaping reality. Remember, the two work together at the highest levels to bring about the desired goal and changes. Some of these even take centuries to achieve, while some are achieved in just a few years. Regardless of your opinions on the man the world is polarized into either a villain or a hero, Trump's sole mission is indeed the same as the one attributed to Saint Germain: to take the power from the dark and disseminate the, quote, light to humanity. In other words, bring about a pole shift from dark to light.
Remember in May of 2019, Trump tweeted, "This is a bright new age, the age of enlightenment."
And Q post number 144 even references this new age of enlightenment. This renaissance of enlightenment from the dark age we've been in. I've already explained what Q is and where it came from and how it's linked itself to Trump and his players in my video, The Cult of Keck. Donald Trump is only the face of this multi-generational light operation. He takes orders from the highest levels, just like all the others do, as we discussed in Part 7 of Programmed, and plays his role just like those on the dark squares of the chessboard do. He generally speaks to the, quote, normies, or exoterically, while he leaves the esoteric information for the Anons paying attention to the Q portion of the operation. He is the one in the public eye, and he says things to troll with the MSM, not necessarily to tell the viewers the truth. The implications of him doing so would be pretty drastic, and plausible deniability is a powerful tool he uses often. He does not have as much power as his devotees believe, but he has much more power than those who oppose him. He is and was performing alchemy in that he is turning lead, the dark, into gold, the light, the goal of the death to life ritual. Like it or not, Trump made the world aware of its negative state. He caused a great awakening.
Recall how Freemasons believe change is affected by people doing things. The strings that control the system, so to speak, were revealed once Q began giving the Anons, social media users who follow Q, the initiative to dig for information. The information was largely available to anyone willing to put their time and their life on the line to look for it, but Q essentially used the old phrase, safety in numbers, to bring to light much that had been hidden and teach people to look for it, to become aware of reality.
There was that ant that stood up to me.
Yeah, but we can forget about him.
Yeah, it was just one ant. One ant.
Yeah, you're right. It's just one ant.
Yeah, boss, they're puny.
Puny? Say, let's pretend this grain is a puny little ant. Did that hurt?
No.
How about this? You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line.
Q gathered the ants together. This is a necessary step before inversion. It doesn't matter what your characterization is of this operation. The effect has been to raise awareness.
No longer is a single person or group attempting to expose monsters such as Big Pharma, Big Tech, or Big Agra. Now there are thriving communities who share the same distrust and skepticism worldwide of what they had been conditioned to trust. This has grown so far out of control that Big Tech has gone on a campaign of extreme censorship to stop this. It has broken the landscape of the internet, with much of what you and I see now generated by artificial intelligence, bots, and paid trolls.
Another example is that the propaganda on TV today was not how television started. The government had put rules in place to prevent this very problem. To do that, they decided that all 3 TV stations could air political programming provided they gave equal time to countering points of view. It was called the Fairness Doctrine and lasted from 1949 to 1987. Ronald Reagan canceled it. We're living through a problem outlined in the paradox of tolerance. The paradox of tolerance states that if a society is tolerant without limit, its ability to be tolerant is eventually seized or destroyed by the intolerant. Karl Popper described it as the seemingly paradoxical idea that in order to maintain a tolerant society, the society must retain the right to be intolerant of intolerance. Based on their actions and agendas, all that Q and Trump represent fall onto the light squares, while all those they purport to rally against fall into the dark squares. Counter-narrative versus narrative. Red pill versus blue pill. Be aware of when people dismiss all Trump and the gang are saying or doing by saying, "Oh, he's exactly the same as the others," or something like that, which invalidates everything about them by making you think that they're aligned with the dark, and the dark operations and their way of thinking. But what they don't realize is the two-sided nature of the Brotherhood Network. There is dark, which everyone is aware of, and there is the light. the side that everyone ignores. They're not the dark side. They are on the light side. Both of them are not of God. But remember, at the very top, they are all in agreement with the plan. It just depends on which branch needs to carry out the parts of a dialectic at any given time. Just don't forget about the white squares. Back in 2017, Q started posting about wizards and warlocks. The first post using those terms was from November of 2017 and discussed the importance of military intelligence. This post explained that the alleged chance encounter by BC and then Attorney General LL on a tarmac in Arizona was planned and that the NSA knew about it. Take a moment to read the highlighted section here. The previous post continues with, quote, "What was negotiated on the tarmac between BC and Lynch? Remember, it was expected HRC was going to win during this time period. What if the wizards and warlocks tipped off a local reporter as to the supposed unscheduled stop? What if the NSA, under the personal direction of Admiral Rogers, had this meeting miscategorized and logged under a false identity to prevent bad actors from locating while also verifying to said players all was clear? No logs. What really happened when the wizards and warlocks revealed what they had? Was C forced into the spotlight shortly thereafter, not by choice? Right before the no doubt, which would cast suspicion? C was indeed forced to discuss HRC's emails and evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, which HRC used to blame him for her loss. Q goes on to say, quote, if we failed, and HRC assumed control, we as patriots were prepared to do the unthinkable. This was leaked internally and kept the delegate recount scam and BO from declaring fraud. Q explains that they were ready to do something drastic to take down the dark side. They leaked what they were going to do and effectively kept these two from asking for this, or even declaring there was this in the 2016 this. Then Q says, there is simply no other way than to use the military. It's that corrupt and dirty. Now, that doesn't mean the military isn't dirty. It's just that they have their own soldiers in there they can control to reach their goal. What this means is that the military has information on the dark side and is using it as blackmail to make them do what the light side wants them to do. The light is forcing the solution to the dark side problem, because the light side are and have been in control for at least the last 6 years. Continuing with this line of thinking, in 2018, an anon asked, please tell us who the wizards and warlocks are, and they responded, Guardians of Intelligence, meaning military intelligence. 2 years later, Space Force members were officially called Guardians. Now, Space Force is a cyberspace intelligence operation that was organized under the Department of the Air Force. Trump himself on October 21st of 2021 stated Space Force would be very important soon. Why is this important? What happened in 2020 was well accounted for and expected by the light side. The operation is still far from over. I just wanted to highlight the fact that these supposed guardians, who may very well turn out to be the saviors of mankind, are called wizards and warlocks. You know, warlocks for Jesus. Q promotes the idea that we're here to save or fix humanity. Justice belongs to the military, and because people have been conditioned to think the opposite of bad is good, they believe that since the dark side is bad, then Q and Trump must be good. But they're still playing the game. Q represents a false light, like the light of an anglerfish luring in unsuspecting prey. The adversary masquerades as an angel of light. Many Q posts tell the reader to, quote, follow the light. The very storm the Q movement wishes to achieve renders Jesus a useless character, or at best, a supporting character, because humanity can essentially save itself. Humanity is now being initiated on a massive scale into the light, the same way an adept is initiated into a mystery school. To summarize this section, no one readily believes a lie. Instead, they believe what, to them, looks like the truth. To gain the advantages of the dialectic method, the Luciferian powers must be behind both extremes, light and dark, liberal and conservative, and so on. But this only works if the people being manipulated and deceived do not realize the same people are behind both sides. It's not one-sided, just the dark. It's the dark, the light, the sum of its parts. The sides are just how the agendas get reached. Both are necessary to complete the goals. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Got it? Good. The folly with many who believe it's us versus them is that it's you and I versus the super elite. That places you and I into the light side of the pole. The entire purpose of this video is to implore you to see this error and stop participating in this game. This is not your world if you are saved by Jesus, and this is not your war to fight. The worship and idolatry of nations and the people claiming to help you are the same ones who helped enslave you. Get out of this game while you still can. Who is Saint Germaine, and why is he important to the events happening today? Saint Germaine is considered to be an ascended master by many occult groups. Before his ascension, he incarnated many times or lived many lives throughout history. These incarnations have been documented by his followers in Theosophy, the New Age, Freemasonry, the Order of the Golden Dawn, the Rosicrucians, and the Knights of Columbus for centuries. He is considered to be the true sovereign Grand Master of both Freemasonry and the Knights of Columbus. Some of Saint Germaine's alleged incarnations include the High Priest of Atlantis, Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, King Solomon, Plato, Merlin the Magician, Christopher Columbus, and Francis Bacon, to name a few. The idea of random incarnations or reincarnations cannot explain why he was so many influential characters. A better explanation for his many lives is that he is a powerful entity, most likely Gadrael, and he uses what's called overshadowing or channeling to take control and guide humans at various points of their lives to influence the events of history. Since Lucifer is not a name but a title, the angel associated with being the light bearer or the giver of knowledge, or enlightenment, is called Gadrael. That information, along with the names of the other fallen angels, as well as countless other important historical events, has been withheld from us by the dark occultists throughout history who wanted us to remain ignorant. Knowing that Lucifer's name is Gadrael will become important as I discuss the history of Saint Germaine and his many incarnations. Saint Germaine's followers claim that he was Hermes, an Egyptian sage who was synonymous with the god Thoth. Hermes is credited with creating alchemy and developing a system of metaphysical beliefs that are known today as Hermeticism, which is the basis of most modern right-hand path magic. Before he was considered a god, he was the greatest Egyptian philosopher and the founder of ancient Egyptian mystery schools. He received his wisdom while in a meditative trance and wrote over 40 books, including the Emerald Tablets. It is in the Emerald Tablets that Thoth, or Hermes, connects himself to Atlantis, claiming that he was the high priest there. To the Egyptians, Hermes' knowledge was so great that they saw him as a communicator with the gods, and eventually inducting him into the Egyptian pantheon of gods. Another book he allegedly wrote, the Book of Thoth, was written in Egyptian hieroglyphs and described the key to immortality through a process of awakening certain areas of the brain similar to the practices of Buddhist monks. Alchemy, taught by Thoth, is an ancient path of spiritual purification and transformation, the expansion of consciousness, and the development of insight and intuition through images and symbols. During medieval and Renaissance times, alchemy spread through the Western world and was further developed by Kabbalists, Rosicrucians, and astrologers, and other occultists. It functioned on two levels, mundane and spiritual. On a mundane level, alchemists sought to find a process to convert base metals such as lead into gold. On a spiritual level, alchemists worked to purify themselves by eliminating the base material of the self and achieving gold of enlightenment. Hermeticism teaches that energetic evolution, or transmuting the body into a light body, is the true meaning and purpose of life. In my opinion, this is like saying that you save yourself through your own works. Now I'm going to try to show you that the New Age movement fulfills a need in a world that has rejected Jesus, but seeks to fill the spiritual void left behind. And before you turn this off, let me just say that if you were a victim of religious abuse through the church or your family, then I'm sorry. These organizations and beliefs are usually contradictory with the actual living word of God. If you reject God based on the actions of men, that's like saying that you'll never eat vegetables again because you hate vegans. Instead of being angry at God, become angry at the people who twisted and abused the truth for their own need for control, or used it as a form of punishment. I'm going to be addressing this exact issue in a future video. If you are in the New Age or in the occult, please continue watching this video because I made it to try and give you a different perspective and a different way to think about this whole thing. So back to Hermeticism. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn is a system of magic practiced by adepts, and interestingly, it is also an organization within the Illuminati. Through traditional initiation and spiritual practices of Hermetic astrology, magic, and alchemy, it promises to give you the concrete tools to achieve the solar ascension. Many people today believe that there will be a solar flash, and the ones who have chosen to ascend will become light bodies at that time. Most secret societies' beliefs and rituals can be traced back to the Egyptian mystery schools or to Babylon. The most powerful of these mystery schools was known as the Royal School of the Master Craftsman at Karnak, or as the Great White Brotherhood. It's called the White Brotherhood because of the white robes that they wore and also the type of magic they practiced, as well as the white powder they made known to the Mesopotamians as shamana, the high ward firestone, the elixir of life, philosopher's stone, or white bread to the Egyptians. After his time as Hermes, it's claimed that Saint Germain was King Solomon, the son of King David of Israel. King Solomon was the author of the Goetia, or Goetia, and the Keys of Solomon. He was rich, apostate, followed many gods, and was one of the greatest alchemists. He knew how to trap spirits into seals and use them for his own purposes. He is revered by the Freemasons, and he was, indeed, one of the most influential humans in the history of magic and secret knowledge. It's no wonder then that the goal of Freemasonry is to rebuild Solomon's temple, which they know is actually within, rather than being a temple itself. You are the temple. After his time as Solomon, it's claimed that Saint Germain was Plato, Merlin the Magician, and Christopher Columbus who discovered America. Saint Germain incarnated again through Sir Francis Bacon. Bacon wrote under various pen names, one of which being Shakespeare. Bacon was King James's Lord Chancellor, a master of alchemy and the occult, and is considered to be the father of deductive reasoning. Bacon's book, The New Atlantis, predicted a place where freedom and peace would reign under Masonic order, without despotic rulers. It would be the place where the heritage of the House of Solomon could prosper under a golden age of science and logic. Bacon is also credited for providing ideas for the Great Seal of the United States. In 1626, Francis Bacon faked his own death and went to the Rákóczi mansion in Transylvania, where he continued his work in alchemy. Theosophists claim that on May 1st of 1684, he mastered the alchemical secrets and transmuted his mortal body into an immortal body. Francis Bacon chose to join the Great White Brotherhood of Light, a group of ascended masters. Now ascended, Bacon chose to work with humanity to help them all ascend. New Age theology says that as an ascended master, he was allowed to return to a human body in order to teach others how to overcome the laws of the physical universe and usher in the golden age of humanity. It is said that when he reincarnated after his ascension, he was adopted into the royal house of Francis Rákóczi II of Transylvania. When he grew up, he chose the Latin name Sanctus Germanus, or Saint Germain, meaning holy brother. We all know that Gabriel likes his Latin names. So now we have a partial genealogy of the ascended master known as Saint Germain. He was Hermes or Thoth, King Solomon, Christopher Columbus, Francis Bacon, and finally, the Count of Saint Germain. The Count of Saint Germain was known as the Wonder Man of Europe and Asia. He was a diplomat, an alchemist. He spoke every language. He could remove flaws from jewels, and it said that he had an elixir of life that preserved his health and youthfulness. No one knew exactly where he came from, or how old he was. It is said that he was seen for over 200 years. If you'd like a more complete history of Saint Germain, I suggest watching the video Changes on the Horizon. I'll leave a link to that in the description. Saint Germain worked closely with the Rosicrucians, the Fratres Lucis, and the Freemasons. He also started the secret society known as the Knights and Brothers of Asia, who studied Rosicrucian and Hermetic science. In 1727, Saint Germain developed secret money-making techniques that he shared with European royalty and bankers. Instead of sharing the wealth with humanity, the bankers squandered it for themselves. So in 1729, Saint Germain created the World Trust. He specified that the World Trust would be released by the year 2000. And that was not an easy task, and is also the subject of my next video. In the 1770s, his followers say that Saint Germain worked behind the scenes with George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Benjamin Franklin, preparing the U.S. Constitution and Declaration of Independence. Saint Germain reformed the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians, secret societies. Are you noticing a pattern here? Nobility, alchemy, secret societies. Saint Germain was rumored to have died in 1784, but there were no witnesses and no record of such. and no one knows where he was buried. 10 years later, he was sighted in Paris during the French Revolution. Voltaire once said, "The Count of Saint Germain is a man who was never born, who will never die, and who knows everything." An effort was made in the 1800s to eliminate Saint Germain's name from modern Freemasonry and Masonic literature when the Freemasons were taken over by a darker faction that was more interested in creating despotic rulers than in helping people ascend. The new darker faction of Freemasons followed the protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, which are the complete opposite of the teachings of Saint Germain. Despite their attempts to erase Saint Germain's name from all of their lodges, the letter G still features prominently in Freemasonry's most recognizable symbol, the square and compass. Masons give several answers when asked what the G stands for. God, the great architect of the universe, the generative principle. Wouldn't it be interesting if the G stood for Germain, or ultimately Gadrael? Because the name Gadrael literally means builder of God or mason of God, to me, the G could very well stand for the hidden name of God, their God, Gadrael.
I'm the builder president, remember that, so I understand.
So somebody, excuse me, somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it. So I'm taking on China.
5776 started on Yom Teruah, which was September 13th of 2015. Now this is a very important year for Freemasonry, which has its own calendars. And to Masons, 5776 is known as Anno Lucis, or the Year of Light. This was indeed the year that Saint Germain regained control over the Freemasons and began to wage a war on the Cabal, that darker faction that took over for so many years. Now in the Bible, the Cabal can be found in Revelation 13. As the first beast. In America, during the Obama administration, the Antichrist spirit of Belial could be found everywhere as we lived in a constant state of heightened fear. There was a fear of a military coup, of CERN, of Jade Helm, of mass shootings and guillotine-filled FEMA camps, apocalyptic doomsday scenarios. We started to notice a different kind of shift in 2015 when the Supreme Court ruled on same-sex marriage. When love won. Now the world literally shifted in that same season when the possibly prophetic Nepal earthquake in April killed over 7,000 people.
Where do the gods live? Gods live in the temple. On April 25th, in less than 2 minutes, centuries of history and culture are reduced to rubble. Now there's no temple, meaning there's no God.
Just like the earthquake in Revelation 11 says. 2015 was also the beginning of what the Cabal called weather warfare. This time in history was the beginning of the transition between the first beast of Revelation, the Cabal, to the second beast of Revelation, the Alliance. We've been experiencing Revelation 13:10, or the transition between the two beasts, ever since, and now we are ready to see the second beast, the Alliance, the false prophet, take over completely. In 1790, Saint Germain prophesied to his Austrian friend that exactly in 85 years will people set eyes on me again. 85 years from that date brings us to 1875. It just so happens that in 1875, Helena Blavatsky founded the Theosophical School in New York City. Helena Blavatsky said that Saint Germain was one of her ascended masters of wisdom. Theosophy would introduce the idea that man's true liberation can come from the soul within, his higher self, and that each individual was indeed a part of God itself. Blavatsky's works revealed the existence of the Great White Brotherhood of Light and its hidden hand in moving the course of events throughout history. In the late 1800s, Blavatsky gave a clue as to who she followed when she published a magazine called Lucifer. The idea of Christ consciousness is very popular today thanks to celebrity Kabbalists like Deepak Chopra and has its roots in Theosophy. Achieving Christ consciousness is essentially the same thing as enlightenment. It claims that you were created by God, and for that same reason, you are God. Now, while any philosophical idea can sound good, don't get caught up in the wordplay. Anyone could argue the exact opposite. For example, if God created you, then you are artificial. The way I, a computer programmer, would create a character. That character I create does not exist outside of its own game. I am still God, and they are not, even though I, God, created them. Not to mention that Christ consciousness sounds suspiciously familiar. As it says in Genesis 3:5, "Then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods." It's important to make this connection. We know that Gadrael was in the garden when he uttered this first lie, promising Eve that she would be like a god through enlightenment. Now we see that this same lie has stayed the same for centuries and has been peddled throughout time by the same character, Gadrael, who was Thoth, Hermes, King Solomon, Francis Bacon, Christopher Columbus, and Saint Germain. Regardless of the name, the entity known as Gadrael, the serpent, that old dragon, Lucifer, has constantly been guiding us into believing the same lie. In the early 1900s, the basis of the I Am movement was given to the founder, Guy Ballard, by channeling Ascended Master Saint Germain. He taught Guy about the Great Creative Word, or I Am. The I Am presence is said to be in each person and represents a point of contact with divine reality. The I Am movement was also instructed to preserve the idea of America, a revolutionary experiment in freedom, also known as the Great Masonic Experiment. In the 1950s, Saint Germain again used another messenger, Geraldine Innocente, to form the Bridge to Freedom movement. Through this movement, Saint Germain revealed more about the structure of the Great Brotherhood of Light, its continued governance of world affairs, and presented its future plans to bring in the new era. In 1958, Saint Germain used another messenger. Mark Prophet informed the Summit Lighthouse movement, together with his wife, Elizabeth Clare Prophet. They formed the Church Universal and Triumphant, a church dedicated to Saint Germain, Theosophy, and the I Am presence. Elizabeth Clare Prophet describes the Ascended Master Saint Germain as the violet flame, the Shohan of the seventh ray, and the sponsor of the United States. This is why America is so important at this time in history. Remember, Saint Germain was overshadowing Christopher Columbus, who was credited with discovering America. In reality, he didn't discover anything. He destroyed a nation and its people. From Hermes onward, it is said that Saint Germain tried to liberate humanity from the tyrannical rulers and raise human thinking and logic. His followers say that the whole earth is subject to his will, as he now takes his place as the teacher for the new Aquarian age. This quote from Elizabeth Clare Prophet explains exactly what's happening today, with the emergence of Q and Trump eliminating the deep state. She says, "At the helm of this momentous purging of Earth's dark forces is the great and holy Master Sanctus Germanus, again appearing at this particular flashpoint as he did in the past history to guide and protect us at the threshold of the new age." Trump's sole mission is indeed the same as the one attributed to Saint Germain, to get rid of the dark cabal, or drain the swamp. So in conclusion, this New Age movement, based on ancient secret knowledge, is just a religion for people who are not religious. Not only has most of the world embraced the New Age, the world has also fallen for the deception of the new worldwide religion, love. This new mindset instructs humanity to love everyone, because we are all one, and to send love and light. This translates to avoidance of personal responsibility and avoidance of accountability of actions. When everything is permissible, what is the point in modifying your behavior? Unconditional love corrects, instructs, and condemns that which is not true or safe. Truth is love, and sometimes love hurts. I know some people are not going to like what I have to say because it makes people uncomfortable, but I'm trying to present you with information you can arm yourself with, to speak the truth to people around you in your own life. The hidden knowledge within the occult is very ego-driven, and that it somehow has more value because it is hidden and takes a bit of work to find, when it's really just a watered-down or twisted version of truth. But because it is hidden, there is a certain value placed on its information. After all, value is created in scarcity. But that's the thing. As history will show, the information found in the ancient world that's been rebranded into the New Age is not scarce. It's saturated our entire world for centuries. What is extremely scarce is the truth. Some say that God did not want mankind to be wise like him. Yet, a major source of their power on earth is by doing just that, withholding knowledge from mankind. Whether it be through education, initiation, or through positions of power. The uninitiated are somehow less than and unworthy of information. It isn't until the initiate can control his lower self, or base instincts, that he is worthy of learning philosophical principles. Again, this is contrary to everything God and Jesus did. His information was open to all people in all places.
Alright, I just wanted to interject right here and say this is the same thing we actually see in the religions today, even Christianity, with Catholicism or Seventh-day Adventism or some other denomination. You have this level where, oh, I'm Catholic, I'm Seventh-day Adventist, and you have to be part of our church, the true church, to be basically saved, redeemed. And if you're outside of that, then you're not. And you have to be brought into their church through initiation. You gotta go through the catechism or go through the fundamental beliefs. You got to accept those and confess them and be baptized into the church. It's the same thing. And it leaves out God, because all you really need to do is actually know the gospel, that Jesus Christ died for your sins, rose again the third day. Once you believe that in your heart, that you're a sinner in need of a Savior and you have no other hope except for Jesus, you're born again and you're sealed with the Holy Spirit of God. You're part of the body of Christ. You're saved. You didn't have to go through some kind of initiation. Everybody can do this. Rich, poor, black, white, man, woman, whatever, right? The most evilest person, the goodest person, it doesn't matter. We are all able to do this. There's no initiation. But the organizations we see today, even the Christian ones, have these initiations, and they have the hierarchy of the clergy, the laity, and the people outside of the church. And that's not how the early church was. Everybody was together, where in Acts we read about everybody selling all they had, and they used it for everybody in the church. They didn't use it to support the apostles, right? Yeah, it would be strange. They sold everything they had, gave it to the apostles, and now they have nothing, and the apostles have everything. No. They gave things over to the apostles, and they distributed it to everybody as they needed it. So they helped out the church. But today, you don't see that either. The churches are all about, you give us the money, and if you need something, we'll pray for you. Maybe we'll do a bake sale or some bingo or something. Get some kind of food drive of some sort to get things in. More stuff from the people, the laity, to help you out. But we're not going to give you the church money. That's for us. That's not for helping the church out. And if they have need, no, that's not what it's for. It's for this nice suit I have, and for that car you see me drive in on, and that house I have, and the second vacation house I have. That's what that is for. Oh, and all the fancy robes and the golden cups, and to pay for all the wafers and the wine, and put up in the big screen TVs in here, and all these idols that we got up here of the saints and Mary and the giant crucifix that we got. Yeah, that's where all that money goes, to the real important stuff. That's what it goes to, not what you actually need. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents.
How is it then
right
that
now.
God is cruel for withholding information, but when Lucifer does it, it is not cruel? It is not logical or wise to believe that Lucifer is the god of wisdom, enlightenment, and knowledge. John 8:44 says he was a murderer from the beginning, and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth found in him. Of course, God told Eve that if she ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that she would surely die. Lucifer told her that if she ate from the tree, she would be like a god. Eve believed him, and ultimately she died. So which one of them told the truth? And then there are some who believe that they are God. So, you are God. Why are you taking orders from other people? Or from other gods, like the Ascended Masters? Why aren't you making the rules? Even worse, why are you subject to a plan or an agenda, instead of making the plan yourself? You're a god, and yet you're still learning? You mean you're not all-knowing? Jesus teaches about this exact ideology in Matthew 24. Verses 4 through 5, when he says, "Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many." In verse 23, he says, "Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they deceive the very elect." Not only has Christ consciousness deceived the New Agers, but even the elect, or those who identify as Christians, have been deceived by Trump and Q, who have somehow managed to cancel the tribulation. Now, if you believe yourself to be godlike, such is the case with Christ consciousness, how is it then the events that are unfolding have been prophesized for centuries, correlating with the last hour of the last days, when the false prophet beast system has full control? You're in control, yet we're marching full speed into a monetary reset, begun by none other than Saint Germaine and his world trust? Again, our collective consciousness has not raised to a level of consciousness needed to achieve heaven on earth. Rather, we have chosen at a higher level to reject the truth, and that is why we are about to witness the most debated, misunderstood, and feared event in human history. I'm talking about the mark of the beast. In my next video, I'm going to tie up how all of this relates to the last prophecy to be fulfilled before Jesus' return. I should say Jesus' physical return. And what Saint Germain, the New Age, King Solomon, Q, Trump, and gold have to do with it. And most importantly, what you need to know and what you need to do about it. Thank you guys for watching this video. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. I'll see you in the next video.
You believe in God, Charles? Sure, I believe in myself. Why wouldn't I? Jesus is coming back everywhere, and nothing can stop it. It's a consciousness that lives in your mind.
Hi everyone, thanks for watching. In case you're new to my channel, I previously have posted a series of videos that connect Donald J. Trump to dozens of Bible verses about the Antichrist. Simply put, the Bible has many specific descriptions of the Antichrist, and they all seem to match Trump to a T. In this video, however, it gets even stranger, as in addition to all those Bible verses pointing to Trump as the Antichrist, there are also tons of other strange coincidences about him in popular culture or in his personal life. It's as if we've been warned about this guy going back over 100 years. Many of these coincidences are common knowledge, but a few might take you by surprise as well. Some of these connect Trump to the Antichrist, others deal with Trump and the end of the world, or the number 666, and others are just weird coincidences. Really weird. By the way, I'm not claiming that this is an exhaustive list. I'm sure that there are many other odd and unusual things involving Trump out there. If you do know of anything else that I missed here, please post it in the comments below. One last thing, this is not a Bible-based video, nor do I claim that these are signs from God. So please take all of these odd coincidences with a grain of salt. And without further delay, let's begin. Number 1. As most people know, Trump's mother is named Mary Ann McLeod, and his father is named Frederick Christ Trump. So Donald's parents are named Mary and Christ. That's not only weird, but incredibly rare if you think about all the billions of people who have ever lived and how few of them would have a mother named Mary and a father named Christ. Speaking of his mother, she once asked Trump's first wife, and I quote, "What kind of son have I created?" Number 2. Going way back to 1874, there was an anonymously authored book called The Odd Trump, which had as its hero a man named Trump. What's so strange about this book? Well, it seems like this particular Trump had a friend and sometimes rival who was named Clinton, of course. Number 3. In 1889, we find a children's book called Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump, which was written by a gentleman named Ingersoll Lockwood. Lockwood also penned a sequel in 1893, which was entitled Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey. According to Wikipedia, these two novels recount the adventures of the German boy Wilhelm Heinrich Sebastian von Trump, who goes by Baron Trump, as he discovers weird underground civilizations, offends the natives, flees from his entanglements with local women, and repeats this pattern until arriving back home at Castle Trump. On the surface, it's simply an odd coincidence that Donald Trump has a son named Baron, and these books talk about a little boy named Baron Trump. But that's not the weird part. Just like Donald J. Trump, the Baron Trump of these novels often mentions his massive brain. Sound familiar? Plus, he has a personalized insult for most people he meets. Does that also sound familiar? Even stranger, this Baron Trump lives in a building named after himself called Castle Trump. The real-life Donald Trump owned a casino named Trump Castle, and for years lived in another building named, for himself, Trump Tower. Number 4. The author of these two books, Ingersoll Lockwood, didn't confine himself to children's books, however, as he also penned a dystopian novel called 1900 or The Last President. In this book, New York City is filled with protest following the shock victory of a populist candidate in the 1896 presidential election, one who brings about the downfall of the American Republic. Quoting from an article in Newsweek about this book, The story begins with a scene from a panicked New York City in early November, describing a state of uproar after the election of an enormously opposed outsider candidate. The entire East Side is in a state of uproar, the article continues. Mobs of vast size are organizing under the lead of anarchists and socialists and threaten to plunder and despoil the houses of the rich who have wronged and oppressed them for so many years. The Fifth Avenue Hotel will be the first to feel the fury of the mob, the novel continues, citing an address in New York City where Trump Tower now stands. Would the troops be in time to save it, the novel asks. Now, that statement about the troops sure seems eerie, considering how the real-life Donald Trump looks for any reason he can find to bring the military onto American streets. Will New York City see large-scale protest on Fifth Avenue after Trump wins re-election? Time will tell, but I, for one, wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Number 5. This one could almost be its own video, but in the 1976 movie The Omen, the Antichrist is named Damien Thorn. Through this movie and its sequels, we learn there are many odd coincidences about Antichrist Damien Thorn and Donald J. Trump. Here are just a few of them. The DT initials, both with 6 letters in the first name and 5 in the last. The names of Damien and Donald both mean one who rules, dominates, or subdues. Both are liars and both brag about achieving great things. Both attended military academies. Both became incredibly rich via inheritances. Both turned their inheritances into vast multinational business enterprises and bought real estate all over the globe. Both had older brothers who died, allowing the younger sons to take over the family business. Damien Thorn takes over Thorn Industries in 1971. Donald Trump took over Trump Organization in 1971. Both rose to political power by lying and deceiving the masses. Both rallied legions of mesmerized followers. Both operated construction companies while in the White House. It's almost as if the Omen movies were written in advance about Donald J. Trump. Maybe they were. Number 6. The 1989 movie Back to the Future 2 had a character named Biff Tannen, who was based on Donald Trump. In this sequel to the original 1985 blockbuster, Biff uses the profits from his towering casino to help shake up the Republican Party before eventually assuming political power himself. In what becomes a lawless dystopian wasteland, Biff encourages every citizen to call him America's greatest living folk hero. Number 7. The 1997 movie Devil's Advocate was a supernatural thriller that starred Al Pacino as none other than Satan himself. Some scenes in the movie were not sets built in some Hollywood studio, or even in hell, but in fact were filmed inside Donald Trump's penthouse at the Trump Tower. The Devil's Advocate indeed. Number 8. In the 2012 movie Batman, we see the entrance to Wayne Enterprises, named after our iconic hero, Bruce Wayne. The building that the movie used for Wayne Enterprises is actually the front of Trump Tower. The name of that movie? The Dark Knight Rises. Seems very appropriate. Here's a fake news alert. You may have seen a Simpsons episode that hilariously showed Trump coming down the escalator to announce his presidency, only with Homer behind him instead of Melania. Some people mistakenly claim that this episode was shown before Trump actually did that in real life. That's not true, as this episode showing Trump and Homer coming down the escalator was in reality broadcast about 6 weeks after Trump and Melania did it in real life, and that was back in 2015. But there is a true Simpsons prediction. Number 9. The Simpsons. In the year 2000, there was an episode called Bart to the Future, as a riff on the Back to the Future movies we just discussed. In Bart to the Future, Lisa becomes president. Her first order of business is to try to clean up the big mess left by the previous president. Who was that previous president? Why, Donald J. Trump, of course. Number 10. One of the more startling coincidences involving Trump is from an old TV show called Trackdown, which ran on CBS from 1957 to 1959. One episode during the 1958 season depicts a small western town full of frightened people who fear that disaster is about to befall them. Why do they believe this? Because a man named Walter Trump just came into town, out of nowhere and claimed that a disaster was going to destroy that town, and only he had the power to stop it. How was he going to stop this disaster from happening? Why, Trump was going to build a wall, of course. Oh, and in case you couldn't guess, the title of this episode that starred Trump the con man was called The End of the World. Number 11. We all know that Donald J. Trump has a history with porn stars. Well, in 1998, there was an adult magazine that asked the question, Donald Trump, the next president? The name of that magazine was Genesis, just like the first book of the Bible. Also, that magazine came out in January of 1998, and 1998 is 666 times 3, because, of course. Number 12. Trump was on another magazine cover, this time about 36 years ago, in 1985. The magazine was called Manhattan, Inc., and is now defunct. Trump was pictured holding a dove to symbolize his plans for world peace, because if there's anyone who can bring peace and harmony to this world, it's definitely Donald J. Trump. Side note, have you noticed how many sixes just seem to pop up nowadays? They're everywhere. For example, almost all the security or validation codes that you have text to your phone are 6 digits. And we're in the middle of a pandemic, so how far should we social distance in order to be safer? Why, 6 feet, of course. Sixes are everywhere, and most definitely, sixes also surround Trump and his family. Number 13. In 2017, the first year of the Trump presidency, the U.S. budget deficit widened to $666 billion. This is the only time in history that the U.S. budget deficit was in the amount of $666 billion. Number 14. On February 2nd, 2018, slightly more than 1 year into the Trump presidency, the stock market lost 666 points. This is the only time in history that the stock market lost 666 points. Number 15. Trump achieved 666 delegates on the Ides of March. The Ides of March, in case you don't know, is March 15th. As Shakespeare wrote, beware the Ides of March. This date has a bit of evil attached to it, as March 15th equates to 315, which some see as 3 sixes. Remember Amityville Horror and how the guy kept waking up at 3:15 a.m.? Number 16. On September 25th of 2020, Trump announced a plan to give all Medicare recipients a $200 cash card. Since Trump's plan would cover 33 million Medicare recipients, his plan would cost, yep, you guessed it, $6.6 billion. Number 17. Trump became president in 2016. Guess what? 2016 equals 666 plus 666 plus 666 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6. Because why not? And by the way, Trump is 6 foot 3 inches tall, which equates to 6 times 3 or 3 sixes. Because, of course. Fake news alert. You may have heard that Trump Tower is 203 meters tall, and that equals 666 feet. In truth, Trump Tower is a shade under 203 meters tall. Thus, it isn't quite 666 feet tall. It's actually 664 feet tall. So pretty close, but not quite on that one. Number 18. I mentioned the Omen movie a few minutes ago. In Omen 2, Damien Thorne's birth date is revealed to be June 6, 1966, which is, of course, 666. Well, guess what else happened on that date? June 6, 1966 just happens to be the exact date of the death of Donald Trump's grandmother, from which Donald inherited her estate. Her name was Elizabeth Christ Trump, and it was Elizabeth Christ Trump who incorporated the Trump family business that Donald Trump took over and ran after her death. Thus, Donald J. Trump became the heir of the Trump family business on the same day that the fictional Damien Thorne was born. Number 19. Gematria is a way to calculate the numerical value of a name based on the letters in a name. Interestingly, Biblical Hebrew was a language that consisted only of consonants without vowels. Guess what happens if you put the name of Donald J. Trump into a gematria calculator without the vowels? Yep, you end up with 666. Number 20. We all know about Trump's son-in-law owning 666 Fifth Avenue. The 666 Tower, purchased by Jared, was bought for $1.8 billion. And again, we have the number 18, which is 3 sixes. Number 21. A blood moon happens when Earth's moon is in a total lunar eclipse. And in the Bible, blood moons are a harbinger or warning sign of terrible events to come. In fact, in the book of Acts, we read, "The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and awesome day of the Lord." Oh yeah, guess who was actually born on a blood moon? Yes, Donald J. Trump. Trump has also other blood moon references and celestial phenomena surrounding his presidency, and you can find a lot of details about them in other YouTube videos. Number 22. The name Donald means world ruler. Think of it as a powerful mafia don. The name Trump means to upstage, to outrank, or the triumph, but it also has a connotation of trickery, for instance, trumped-up charges. Number 23. At the end of 2017, Trump decided to change the name of his Trump Soho Tower in downtown Manhattan. For a new name, he chose the Dominic, which means the Lord and Master. Interestingly, the name change to the Dominic was good for business, as revenues increased by 20%. Personally, I'm surprised it didn't increase by 66%. Number 24. Have you noticed that Christians seem to love Trump, even though he's lived a life that's pretty much anti-Christ in every way? Well, here's something odd. The man that Christians have lined up behind seems to have a very cross-like symbol that he uses to mark his name on buildings around the world. I'm surprised Damien Thorne didn't think of this one. Side note, did you ever hear of alliterations? Alliterations are the occurrence of the same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. Well, let's get ready for a few alliterations. Number 25. In the Bible, the angel of the bottomless pit is named Abaddon, and Abaddon is, of course, a bad don. Number 26. In the book of Revelation, trumpets are sounded just prior to the day of the Lord. Is it surprising then that Donald Trump's running mate is a man named Pence? Trumpets, trumpets. Number 27. In the Bible, the Antichrist arrives on the scene riding a white horse. White horse, White House. And by the way, the rider of that white horse is also given a crown. Crown means, among other things, corona. Number 28. Trump is the first president in over 120 years to not have a dog in the White House, or any pet for that matter. Could it be because animals seem repulsed by him? By the way, a few moments ago I mentioned the Damon Thorne character from The Omen. In the movie, animals are also terrified of Damien Thorne. As they say, animals just have a way of detecting evil. Number 29. Did you ever notice the strange physical resemblance between Donald Trump and L. Ron Hubbard? They just look like they could be cousins, or even brothers. Of course, one thing they have in common is being notorious liars, especially about their own accomplishments. In 1946, a few years before his Scientology days, L. Ron Hubbard took part in a series of magic rituals alongside a gentleman named Jack Parsons. Parsons was himself quite famous, being a rocket engineer from Caltech and one of the principal founders of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. These two men conducted a series of occult rituals from January to March of 1946, rituals that were based on the ideas of Aleister Crowley. The purpose of these rituals was to reincarnate a goddess called Babylon, while other reports have the purpose as trying to bring about the Antichrist. The really weird part is that Hubbard apparently believed that an unborn fetus was so-called an empty vessel, up until about the age of 3 months. During that time, it could be implanted with this Babylon spirit. And as of January 1946, the time when these occult rituals would have been taking place, guess what unborn baby would have been about 3 months old in the womb? That's right, none other than Donald J. Trump. Number 30. Nostradamus spoke of the false trumpet concealing madness that will change money and standards. He wrote, "The trumpet shakes with great discord, an agreement broken. The false message about the rigged election to run through the city, stopping the broken pact. Voices bought, chapel stained with blood, the empire contracted to another one. Fake news alert. You may have read that Trump lives on the 66th floor of Trump Tower. This is actually not true, mostly because the building is only 58 floors high. Why would people think this building had more floors? Because, surprise, surprise, Trump lied about it a long time ago and claimed it had 10 more floors than it did. In reality, the Trump penthouse in Trump Tower is on the 56th, 57th, and 58th floors, which are the top 3 floors of the building. It is odd, though, that he wanted people to think that he lived on his 66th floor. Maybe he just likes the number 6. Number 31. In the 1980s, a Catholic man nicknamed the Hermit of Loreto was so convinced that Donald Trump would one day become a great spiritual force in America that he wrote Trump's name on a brick and had it placed at the reconstruction of St. Peter's Holy Door after the Jubilee in order that Trump would have received blessings from the many masses that would be said inside the Vatican. Of course, exactly what spiritual force Donald Trump would be bringing to America is up for debate. Number 32. The Bible talks about 3 demons and likens them to frogs. Guess what symbols the alt-right chose to use in ritual magic in order to help Trump? Yep, Pepe the Frog and other frog-like symbols. Number 33. Inverted pyramids are everywhere. You see them on Trump Tower, on Trump administration emails. Trump himself makes this gesture almost every time he's sitting. It's no small coincidence that inverted pyramids are quite popular in the occult. Number 34. In August of 2016, a man named Stephen Rogata climbed Trump Tower and was subsequently caught about halfway up. Later, when asked why he did it, he said it has to do with when he becomes president, how he'll govern. This was 3 months before Trump officially won the election. Number 35. The music at Trump rallies. It almost seems like Trump is hiding in plain sight with some of these music selections he chooses. The music at his rallies has typically included Sympathy for the Devil, also another Stones song called Play with Fire. Number 36. The Snake Poem. I'll leave you with this for today. It's a video of Trump reading a short poem entitled The Snake. Is it just me, or does Trump sound like he's referring to himself as the snake?
On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. His pretty-colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. "Poor thing," she cried, "I'll take you in, and I'll take care of you." She wrapped him up all cozy in a comforter of silk and laid him by her fireside with some honey and some milk. She hurried home from work that night, and as soon as she arrived, she found that pretty snake she'd taken in had been revived. She clutched him to her bosom. "You're so beautiful," she cried. "But if I hadn't brought you in by now, oh heavens, you would have died." She stroked his pretty skin again and kissed him and held him tight. But instead of saying thank you, that snake gave her a vicious bite. "I have saved you," cried the woman, "and you've bitten me, heavens, why? You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die." "Oh, shut up, silly woman," said the reptile with a grin. "You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in."
I appreciate you watching. If you have any other strange coincidences or oddities about Trump, please add them in the comments below. And as always, please be respectful of one another in the comments. Thanks again for watching. Take care.
Hi everyone! I know I've talked a lot about Q in previous videos, but I've never really talked about President Trump. As you know, he was already famous before he became president, and he was the epitome of wealth. He managed to get a large portion of the evangelical vote because he convinced them that Hillary's America would take away their religious rights, their gun rights, and raise their taxes. Many begrudgingly voted for him because the alternative seemed worse. After Obama's 2 terms, people felt like their voices weren't heard, so they took whatever they could get. But Christians today see him differently, like some sort of savior sent by God.
I think God calls all of us to fill different roles at different times, and I think that he wanted Donald Trump to become president, and that's why he's there.
But have you ever asked God for forgiveness? I'm not sure I have. I just go and try and do a better job from there. I don't think so. I think if I do something wrong, I think I just try and make it right. I don't bring God into that picture. I don't. Now, when I take, when we go in church and when I drink my little wine, which is about the only wine I drink, and have my little cracker, I guess that's a form of asking for forgiveness. And I do that as often as possible because I feel cleansed, okay?
I'd say that has nothing to do with following the Bible and more with following tradition. On September 29th of 2006, over a month before the presidential election, a New Age source posted this message through channeling.
Donald Trump will be president by destiny. He is a soul extension of Saint Germaine, who is an expert in creating wealth and has a momentum of light that permits him to win any battle or confrontation with the dark ones. Saint Germaine is the hierarch of the Aquarian Age and is involved with the project of peace, prosperity, and recreation of civilization, which will propulse mankind, and this planet, in a golden age era.
Saint Germaine knows that Trump is good at creating wealth, and that makes him the perfect choice for bringing in the financial reset. If you've watched my videos about Saint Germaine, then you know how big a deal this is, and you see how far we've come in the last few years regarding the transition from the Cabal to the Alliance, or from the first beast to the second beast of Revelation. One of Saint Germaine's claims to fame was that he knew how to create wealth. Trump's New York penthouse and Mar-a-Lago resort are decorated in gold, much like Versailles, during the reign of Louis XIV. He was also called the Sun King. Trump is associated with gold, and gold is associated with the sun, and the sun is associated with Lucifer. Trump's relationship to gold is not an accident. He was prepared by light occultists for this very time in our history. He is not endorsed by God, but by Lucifer, for the specific purpose of taking down the Cabal, bringing in the quantum financial reset, NESAR, GESRA, or the Mark of the Beast. Just like Revelation 13 prophesied. Those same Christians that seem to support Trump have forgotten that during Obama's administration, they were the very ones calling him the Antichrist.
God is the one and true living God, the creator of heaven and the universe.
The media encouraged that idea as well. And who can forget the Denver DNC in 2008 when Obama received the nomination for president? He stood in front of a replica of the altar of Pergamum, the seat of Satan, mentioned in Revelation 2:12, and is called the seat or the throne of Satan. In contrast, Donald Trump entered the RNC in 2016 like this. Dark to light. And remember this?
Just this week, Michelle Bachmann actually predicted that I would bring about the biblical end of days.
Dark occultists worked very hard to portray Obama as the Antichrist we've all been conditioned to look for. If you've watched my previous videos, then you know that the Antichrist system, the Cabal, the Beast of the Sea, or the Spirit of Belial was the power behind the Obama administration for the purpose of bringing in the Dark World Order. The Obama years, especially after he was allowed to continue from 2012 to 2015, were years of fear. FEMA camps, coffins, hollow point bullets, watchtowers, jade helm, martial law, and guillotines. Obama was the last of the successful Antichrist system's puppets. Even the ones saying Obama was the Antichrist suddenly started to act like the tribulation got canceled once Q came on the scene. The tribulation has not been canceled. We've just moved from the first beast to the second beast. The beast of the earth, the false prophet system, or the alliance. Revelation 13 describes both systems. The first one, the beast of the sea, the Antichrist spirit, or the cabal, and the second beast, the beast of the earth, the false prophet, or the alliance. Both systems are made up of wicked people in high places who worship the fallen angels and follow their agendas. The beast systems are both so much bigger than just two human figures. They're two worldwide conglomerates made up of religions, organizations, militaries, and two different agendas. It is important to understand that there are two versions of the New World Order. Not many people are aware of that. Donald Trump is simply the human representation of the light version of the New World Order, the one from the beast of the earth, also called the false prophet system. Remember, a prophet predicts the future. A false prophet predicts a false future. Don't fall for the lie that Trump was sent by God to save America. No human is coming to save America. I hope you realize that that's like saying that God is sending us a savior to save Babylon. And by save, I mean make Babylon great again. Babylon is falling and no one is coming to save it or rebuild it. We are at the end of time and close to Yahusha or Jesus Christ's return. Let me explain the difference between the two beast systems. The foundation of destruction, inversion, and evil was set up by Belial's kingdom, or the Antichrist system, who are all dark occultists or dark Luciferians and follow a specific agenda. The first beast of Revelation, the beast of the sea. Then there's the transition, described in Revelation 13:10, from the first beast to the second beast. The Illuminati calls this the pendulum of power. Seen here is the space in between the floating portion of the ziggurat. And finally, the capstone, which depicts an all-seeing eye. To the dark occultists, this means a world under the complete control of their despotic leadership. To the light occultists, this represents freedom from the, quote, dark, from dark to light, representing the sun and the golden age, turning lead to gold. This is the agenda of the false prophet, the beast of the earth, or the alliance, who are light Luciferians, also called Illuminists, who follow their own agenda, different from the dark occultists' agenda. These two paths are represented as right hand and left hand in the Hindu religion, and also in Freemasonry and witchcraft. So the pieces are separate, however, they are still part of the same pyramid. We may have turned the page, moved from the first beast to the second beast, but we're still in the same story. Trump is no hero. He represents a very powerful force of evil. He may do things that look like miracles, but ultimately they're meant to deceive. All of what's happening is outlined in the prophecies of Revelation 13. I encourage you guys to take the time to read or reread Revelation 13 for yourself. It is fascinating and very important to understand what's going on right now. These two beasts are warring against each other for control over humanity. In my opinion, it's also possible that the Cabal actually sees the Alliance as like the God figure, coming to punish them for rejecting the truth and inverting all of God's laws. And the Alliance may believe they are God sent to rid the world of evil. Because the only way to understand an antagonist, and our antagonists are the occultists, both right and left, you have to understand why they think they're a protagonist in their own story. And this is Lucifer's world, so we have to understand why he thinks he's a hero to understand the second beast system. Because the second beast system is acting like it's coming to save us from the first. The Cabal, the first beast system, or the synagogue of Satan, the Jews that are not Jews, forgot about one thing. Jesus. They do not expect him to return. They had a different plan. This plan was exposed by Q in a post from January of 2018. Look at this Q drop. In the blue box, Q says that they never thought she would lose, referring to Hillary Clinton. The Cabal had a 16-year plan to destroy America. Obama, who Q calls Hussein, was given 8 years to install rogue operators, leak classified intel about military assets, cut funding to the military, take command away from generals, launch a, quote, good guy takedown. This would be taking down of the Alliance, or the military that Q was working with. Using Valerie Jarrett as the sniffer, or the one who determined who would be removed. Special access programs would be sold to other countries. Snowden would release intel that would destroy the military worldwide, but not the, quote, bad actors. Those are the clowns, or CIA, and no such agency is the NSA. Obama was also tasked with targeting and weakening the conservative base by using the IRS and the mainstream media. He opened the border to flood the country with illegals who vote for Democrats. He let in ISIS fighters and MS-13 gangs. He funded and installed fear and targeted or removed domestic assets, which is U.S. military. Obama allowed North Korea to build nukes. He turned a blind eye to Iran, as well as funding and supplying them with money and weapons. He allowed classified information to leak and staged the assassination of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. He funded the Iranians, North Koreans with uranium-1 and reduced the U.S. nuclear capacity. He defunded NASA to prevent space domination and allowed the cabal to take down military satellites worldwide, as well as securing communications and installing weapons of mass destruction worldwide. That would risk an EMP attack and leave the country helpless. The Trump administration inverted all of these plans. In the green box, Q says that Hillary was supposed to start World War III, where death and weapons were real, but the war was fake and controlled. This was part of their depopulation agenda. She was to eliminate all rogue operators within the government and military. These would be the ones loyal to the alliance. She was supposed to kill the economy, open the borders, revise the Constitution, ban the sale of firearms, install her own set of Supreme Court judges, remove the Electoral College, manipulate votes using Soros' machine, limit or remove military funding, close all military installations worldwide, starting with Germany, and destroy opposing mainstream media and news outlets. Her task was to completely destroy America, and that would most likely have included a nuclear war with North Korea.
If I had not been elected President of the United States, we would right now, in my opinion, be in a major war with North Korea.
The cabal's depopulation agenda was literally set in stone. That's how sure they were that they were going to succeed. They didn't expect the light Luciferians to fight back so hard, change the script, and win. The reason? We as mankind have free will. The dark occultists, light occultists, and the fallen angels can't force us to do anything against our will, against our consent, no matter how veiled that consent is. Humanity chose to follow the right-hand path almost overnight, by shifting their entire way of thinking to love, unity, equality, and spirituality over atheism, which lead to the light New World Order and the quantum financial reset. You have to get off both paths because right and left lead to destruction. Jesus came to break the chains of these philosophies and offer a way out of that kind of dualistic thinking, to see both sides for the deceptions they are. Trump again used a lot of these right-hand ideas in his 2019 State of the Union speech.
This is the time to search for the tallest summit and set our sights on the brightest star. This is the time to rekindle the bonds of love and loyalty and memory that link us together as citizens, as neighbors, as patriots. And we must always keep faith in America's destiny. That one nation, under God, must be the hope and the promise and the light and the glory among all the nations of the world. And the light.
The mark of the beast, which comes from the false prophet or the second beast system, is nothing that can be forced upon every human in a violent way. It's going to come as something that we can't resist. A gift, too good to be true. Like how the false prophet looks like the lamb, but speaks like the dragon. It looks nice on the surface, but ultimately the price is much too high. I'll touch on that subject in a minute. Before the election, Trump told the cabal exactly what he was going to do. And for the first time, pulled back the curtain and showed us exactly who was controlling the world. Well, to an extent. Didn't exactly show the light Luciferians.
The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people.
Could he actually win?
No freaking way!
Which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Donald Trump.
There's not going to be a President Donald Trump.
Trump will not be president.
Trump will never be elected president of the United States.
You're not going to be president.
A man
who will never be president of the United States.
Donald Trump is not going to be president of the United States. Take it to the bank.
He will never be president.
Donald Trump is not going to become president of the United States.
Obviously, the polls were wrong. Their rigged machines couldn't deliver a win. Election day cost them more than power and influence. It cost them everything. Hillary didn't even have a concession speech ready that night because she never thought she would lose. November 11, 2016, I took this picture at a local Barnes & Noble. 2 days after Trump won the election, the magazines still weren't on the racks. They were just thrown on a bench. So that was the end of the dark New World Order. The great work of the dark occultists is to keep humanity in a state of general unconsciousness and slavery, and to tighten that control until they're invisible, invincible, and immortal. In other words, they become God. But that was only one of 2 possible outcomes. Remember, we have free will. And humanity essentially chose to reject their fear-based slave system and opt for the new religion of love. That started when the Supreme Court ruled in favor of same-sex marriage on June 26 of 2015. It really signified a lot more than that, and it was a lot more historic than people realize. But everyone knows that at the end of a rainbow is a pot of gold. The problem with this is that that kind of love is conditional love. It's said that Saint Germain is the Shohan of the 7th ray because he chose to remember love. And 2 Timothy 3:2 warns us about this phenomenon of spirituality and rejection of truth by saying that men will be, quote, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. Believe in love, one love. We're seeing that kind of imagery everywhere right now. Love is the new theme, or the new religion, if you will. And it is the opposite of hate. The first beast system used fear and hate to divide us. The second beast system is using love to unify us. This new narrative from the light New World Order aims for universal enlightenment where truth, love, and freedom prevail. The true great work of light occultist is the distribution of occult knowledge freely to humanity and disclosing everything that the dark occultist used to gain and maintain control over the masses. Instead of a black awakening where movies like The Purge become reality, we're now living in the great awakening of disclosure by Q and the military exacting justice on the cabal kingpins like McCain, Clinton, and Bush, and exposing all of the atrocious things that have happened to humanity. Just because the Obama years were dark, and Trump promises to bring in the dawn, or the light, does not mean both of those systems aren't part of the same pyramid or chessboard. Again, this isn't good versus evil, this is bad versus evil. Earthly authority is Luciferian authority, no matter how nicely it's disguised. Revelation 13:11 says, the beast of the earth, the false prophet system, has 2 horns like the lamb, and he spake like the dragon. So this beast has the appearance of righteousness with a Luciferian agenda. I find that a lot of Christians today actually believe loosely veiled New Age teachings like the ones found in this YouTube video. I'll leave a link to the full video in the description below.
Our Father in heaven chose Donald Trump for this time as an opportunity for his righteous sons and daughters to take back dominion of the earth. He was born for this task, and most importantly, he accepted his calling. Trump is not bound to any religious indoctrinations, and therefore is totally receptive to what has to be done. Trump decided to stand up and step in to stop the destruction of America, which in turn will save the earth.
Trump is a high-level, right-hand Luciferian. He does indeed have a purpose, and it's not to save the world. It's to deceive the people and make them worship the beast behind the second beast system, also known as Lucifer. Not in the form of worshiping some deity or pledging their eternal souls to Lucifer, but by exchanging their hope in a savior, Yahusha or Jesus Christ, for our Lord and Savior Donald Trump, and his promise to make America great again as well as the rest of the world. Yikes.
Our Father in heaven denies any and all prophetic events as described in any book. We have free will, and from this time forward, the righteous must regain total control and dominion of the earth.
We do have free will, and the righteous will regain total and full control over the earth after the second coming. This video is taking Psalm 37:29 out of context. According to the author of this video, There is no tribulation, Jesus is not coming back, and humanity can save itself. In other words, ye shall be as gods. Miraculously, Trump will rid us of the cabal with the promised arrests of high-level people in military tribunals. A new world of technology that was previously hidden will be given to us, a place where all people and all places can live in abundance. Of course, all this will be preceded by a one-time jubilee, or forgiveness of debt, once taxation has been deemed illegal. Lucifer, during his time as the Count of Saint Germain, took great care to make America the land of the free, but it was usurped in the late 1800s by the dark occultists who corrupted the country, privatized the banks, and turned us all into debt slaves. He is now taking America back by way of the Saint Germain World Trust, also called NESAR and GESRA, or the New Quantum Financial Reset, which will phase out fiat currency in exchange for treasury notes in the US, and then the rest of the world will be on a quantum computing blockchain system. The dark occultists at a level called the establishment never considered that these benevolent secret societies could win. Yes, NESAR was said to be announced on September 11th. Yes, the cabal's plan won. Yes, JFK tried to free the people of the cabal's control, and again, the cabal won. Time and time again, the cabal has overcome all who oppose them. But they never thought she would lose. JFK fought for the light New World Order, like Trump is doing now. According to Q, this prayer is said every day in the Oval Office. Rest in peace, Mr. President, JFK. Through your wisdom and strength since your tragic death, patriots have planned, installed, and by the grace of God, activated the beam of light. We will forever remember your sacrifice. You may look down from above and continue to guide us as we ring the bell of freedom and destroy those who wish to sacrifice our children, our way of life, and our world. We, the people. The capitalization of the words light, freedom, and people is not by mistake. Those three words describe Saint Germain's talking points. He is the light of the heart, he is the one who brings us freedom, and he is also the one who declared that humanity, the people, are free. Q and Trump are supposedly saving us from the dark New World Order. But because most people don't realize that there is a light New World Order, they see him as a literal savior, a hero, a false prophet. Q always says this is not another 4-year election. He's promising a false future full of all the things the cabal stole from humanity, like taxes, prosperity, peace, technology. Just remember that even though all these things look like they're from God, they're still coming from Lucifer. A worldwide quantum financial reset and the gift of a one-time jubilee might seem like forgiving our debts as we forgive our debtors. But Trump is an illuminist, and every Luciferian knows that with a gift comes a sacrifice. In reality, what Trump is doing is like what the British Empire did to small countries. The British would warn small countries by saying, "You're in danger, we will protect you." When the British moved into small countries like this, they called them protectorates. And then they took over. What pretends to protect actually ends up controlling and enslaving. This is what the mark of the beast represents. A gift that comes with a sacrifice. By promising debt forgiveness and prosperity and peace, the second beast earns our trust, and later we will realize that it was all meant to enslave us and requires a sacrifice or an equal exchange. This sacrifice is your faith that Jesus will fulfill his promise of returning before the grace period to exchange your fiat currency for the new currency ends. By accepting this gift or this debt forgiveness or free money, you will be accepting the mark of the beast and have not overcome the beast system required in Revelation 15:2. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass having the harps of God. I want to make it clear that the sacrifice for accepting this gift is your soul. Your salvation does not come from any Luciferian.
New Age religions or the mysteries, like Theosophy, do not deny the existence of Jesus at all. They simply claim he too was one such ascended master. But he is not the only way, he is not the only truth, he is just one of many. The powers that be have no plans to abolish churches, but to silently overthrow them. This was accomplished over a 100-year period beginning in the 1920s with the infiltration of Masons into churches and the esoteric roots of seminary schools.
This was all covered in my videos, The Antichrist Investigation and An Inconvenient History. New Age writer William Thompson states, quote, The new spirituality does not reject the earlier patterns of the great universal religions. Priest and church will not disappear. They will not be forced out of existence in the New Age. They will be absorbed into the existence of the New Age." End quote. This was the topic of my original Mind Meme series. The next square on this game board is the world stage. The difference with the Trump saga, that is different from practically any operation we have seen in the past, is the choice to run this one exoterically, in front of the public, as opposed to covertly or esoterically, and most being unaware of it. This is being laid out on the world stage in real time. Prior to this movement, all of the operations to instigate change were done in the shadows.
The best way to describe this is that most people think of this movement like improv. The actors are just making it up as they go in real time. This is not improv. This is a polished play that the public is barely paying attention to. But that doesn't make it any less real or effective. The public is meant to get involved and raise suspicion or show support for this play as opposed to any other operation they needed to get done regardless of the people's opinions on it. The same way an IKEA desk has more value than one bought pre-made from a big box store is because you had the hands-on experience of making it. You feel personally invested in it. If the desk falls apart, you feel responsible. I must have missed a nail or didn't screw something in properly, as opposed to blaming the manufacturer when the big box desk breaks.
The world is getting involved in fighting back against the, quote, dark side and tyranny, essentially building their own desk, just as IKEA taught them to. Q's last post on December 18th of 2020, before moving into its next phase, was a link to the Twisted Sister song, "We're Not Gonna Take It." General Michael Flynn, the one Anons look up to like a sort of military commander, also called the People's General, used this song in July of 2021 in several of his speaking events.
Hey, I'm General Mike Flynn, and we are not going to take it anymore.
General Michael Flynn!
Around the world, Anons used this as their rally cry in protest. The problem is they're forcing the public to jump from the pan and into the fire. They want to scare you into running from the dark and into the light trap that they've set for you. This is the reaction phase of a dialectic. Now the question becomes, why make everyone get involved or participate? Well, that's simple. This operation could essentially be called Operation Light. The theme of it is dark to light, making the world aware of the dark by shining a light on it. They need humanity to believe that they are the solution.
There's a Messiah-like figure, whether or not it's Q themselves or Trump or whoever, and there's a great big biblical battle between good and evil. What's cool with QAnon that's not so cool with, religion per se, is that if you're religious and you're fighting this battle between good and evil, all you have to do is be a good Christian or be a good Jewish person or be whatever religion it is. But QAnon gives you an active part to play because the showdown is happening right now.
The crux of the Q phenomenon is we have to get involved to fix this. It's Bob the Builder mentality. Can we fix it? Yes, we can! Show the people the problems and expect them to fix it. When really, it's just forcing the reaction to the problem to achieve the solution. By attempting to fix the world as a collective, you're playing their game. Again, where is Jesus in this narrative? I've said it before and I'll say it again. The Bible is clear. Humanity cannot and will not save itself. You can stop believing their narratives, dark and light, and start trusting Jesus and his promises. He is our Savior. Have you heard of devolution? Chances are, we're living through it right now.
The Executive Order. Governance and integration of federal mission resilience. On December 7th, 2020, Donald Trump signed Executive Order 13961, Governance and Integration of Federal Mission Resilience. This executive order was released simultaneously with the Federal Mission Resilience Strategy 2020, which we'll refer to as the strategy. I believe that by the end of this video, you will see that between the Federal Mission Resilience Executive Order and the strategy, the entire framework for devolution has been sitting in the Federal Register for everybody to see since December 7th, 2020. Allow me to prove it to you. Executive Order 13961 of December 7th, 2020. This executive order begins by telling us under what authority Trump has issued it. In addition to the Constitution, the laws of the United States, the National Security Act of 1947 is mentioned specifically. The National Security Act of 1947 is found in Chapter 44 of the United States Code, Title 50, War and National Defense. In the very first paragraph, we are made aware of the context that this executive order is being issued in. Throughout the entire Federal Mission Resilience Executive Order, the phrase natural disaster is never mentioned. Yet, the context of war and national defense is immediately clarified. This is very important. The entire basis for this executive order is discussing continuity of government during war, and you will see more proof of this as we continue.
Devolution is one avenue of continuity of government should anything happen to compromise national security. It's like an interim government. An anon that calls himself Patel Patriot, after Kash Patel, who worked for the Trump administration, has been writing a series on the continuity of government plans he believes President Trump put in place before he left office called Devolution. All parts of the entire series released so far are linked below. Essentially, the theory states that then President Trump devolved the government, meaning he remains his advisor, but the military and certain civilians are in charge of the government through regional offices around the United States. It is to preserve national security only. This doesn't cover local government.
An executive committee was formed under this executive order, and they each have specific duties to carry out the continuity of government plans. These are the members of the committee. You may recognize some of them.
I want you to know about these facts so you have a more well-rounded idea of what's going on. We are now moving into the action phase of Operation Light, if you will. So this was just a brief glimpse of some of the information within the Devolution series. Read it yourself and come to your own conclusions. An interesting side note is that the final Q drop was posted the day after the government was allegedly devolved, December 8th of 2020. Another avenue to pay attention to is that the Durham investigation is active and has already produced indictments. Not to mention the pending fallout from his laptop, Dorsey stepping down as Twitter CEO, both Cuomo's fired, and multiple CEOs from corporations like Walmart and American Airlines, as well as Julian Assange's extradition from the UK to the United States. And she was found guilty. Q-Post number 4566 from July 2nd of 2020 regarding Maxwell says, "Do not think today, but rather after today. One leads to another, to another, to another. One leads to many." So this outcome was known over a year ago. They're just moving pieces on the board. This is another example of at the highest levels, there are no sides. There is a common goal that is reached by the use, and in this case disposal, of players on either of their sides. Back to devolution.
Continuity of government hinges on America being at war. Trump referred to himself as being a wartime president and at war with an invisible enemy several times. He's saying this under the guise of this, saying it's worse than Pearl Harbor and the World Trade Center. When Q and Trump referred to this, they were rarely talking about an illness. They were esoterically referring to the attack on America by Zionist ideals. Zionism is a political ideology, not a race.
The insanity we've been living through the past 2 years has nothing to do with this. It's just the excuse for tyranny, and for you to become personally victimized, as in aware of that tyranny.
Trump referred to the epidemic of 1917, which the media was quick to criticize, saying the Spanish flu was in 1918. He was never talking about the Spanish flu. On the contrary, in 1917, Russia underwent 2 revolutions culminating with the Bolshevik Revolution in October, also called Red October, which plunged Russia into communism by inaugurating the Soviet regime, or this was when the dark side took over. The Bolsheviks were renamed the Communist Party after seizing power in the October Revolution of 1917. It should be noted the vast amount of times Q-drops have referred to Red October in the context of the revolution. Anons believe over the last few years, Q had been warning of the takeover of America to install Zionist ideology.
Looking back on everything that has happened this year, it all makes sense why the Q operation had to start in 2017 and gather its followers by disseminating its information regularly. The censorship lockdown, in a way, is a direct result of this mass awakening. It was all preparation for what's happening today. Nothing could be accomplished if he was in office, and the MSM wouldn't allow it. The 4 years of him were the prophecy years, the years setting up the game. It looks like we were at the beginning of the implementation of the plan. It's only going to continue to change from here on out. The longer this game goes on, the more muddy the waters will get, so it's wisest to get out now. The religion of politics has no answers for you. This world is not fixable by humans like you and me. Jesus is the only answer, and the Bible has told us how all of this ends. So don't get caught up in the propaganda of the dark, but also be hyper-vigilant against the light side. The Brotherhood Network has usurped the word light, and it will only cause more confusion as time goes on. That's why we're here today, talking about all the ways this false light is just that, false. It has nothing to do with the God of creation, nor of the actual truth, or the light of the world, Jesus Christ. While there are many light-sided players like Dan Scavino, who posted this recently, and Jim Jordan, let's focus on just one, General Flynn, and when he led the Anons to take the oath. Q posted an oath on June 24th of 2020 instructing the Anons to take the oath. On July 4th, General Flynn led by example and showed his digital army how to take the oath.
Where we go one, we go all.
Where we go one, we go all.
God bless America.
God bless America.
He's also one of the people that's exchanging the definition of light in most people's minds for its mystic imposter. Flynn promoted this video on his Telegram channel for the Reawaken America tour.
Because I have upheld this country to spread the light to the rest of the world. This was sacred to God.
Now is the time to act.
This is exactly why I need some action from my people.
While speaking on the Flyover Conservative podcast on July 13th of 2021, Flynn said,
"We are in a battle between darkness and light."
Mm-hmm.
Okay? If people want to stay in the dark, then be prepared for the consequences of darkness.
Right.
I do not wish to stay in the dark. I want to see the light. But being in the light also allows exposure of the truth, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And light connotes truth. Darkness connotes evil, and evil is a lack of understanding and a lack of truth in our society.
Yep.
And this is not just for Christians. This is for anybody who fears, who's in fear today, to move toward the light. Move toward the light. Find the light. And the first light to find is the light in yourself.
Woo! That's so good.
That's amazing.
And on September 17th of 2021, General Flynn spoke at the Opening the Heavens conference in Omaha, Nebraska. The theme of the conference was, "It is time to get ready for the revolution of light." Here is the message he had to convey.
We are your instrument of those sevenfold rays and all your archangels. All of them.
And I am the instrument of those sevenfold rays and archangels, and I will not retreat. I will take my stand.
We will not retreat. We will stand our ground.
I will not fear to speak.
We will not fear to speak.
And I will be the instrument of God's will, whatever it is.
We will be the instrument of your will. Whatever it is.
In the name of Archangel Michael and his legions, I am freeborn, and I shall remain freeborn.
In your name. And the name of your legions. We are freeborn. And we shall remain freeborn.
And I shall not be enslaved by any foe within or without.
And we shall not be enslaved by any foe. Within or without. So help me God. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you very much.
General Flynn recited Theosophist Elizabeth Clare Prophet's channeled message from 1984 nearly verbatim. Elizabeth's full original speech can be found linked below. It begins by stating the following message is channeled from whom they believe is Archangel Michael, whom Michael Flynn was named after.
In the name of Sanat Kumara, Lord Gautama Buddha, Lord Maitreya Jesus Christ, and Kuthumi, beloved Archangel Michael, we summon you into action now, and by the authority of our own mighty I Am Presence in Christ self we say, I am Michael, 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 I said in his name, I am Michael, Michael.
That's Elizabeth in between her photos of Ascended Masters Sananda Maitreya and Saint Germaine. Shiva the Destroyer is at her feet. After a 45-minute chanting session to invoke an entity, this is how the channeled message began.
Hail, hosts of the Lord! I am Michael, Prince of the Archangels. I salute you, Minutemen and women of Saint Germain, freedom fighters of the ages. I salute you, who are the spokesmen of liberty, and I am here to reinforce the protection of the light bearers and the binding of those hordes of darkness.
And this is what I mean about false light. I hope you are now able to discern the difference between Jesus and this false light of Lucifer. Jesus does not coexist with these mystic philosophies and their various implementations such as nationalism or dominionism, amongst many others. Flynn has attempted to defend himself from those calling his speech an occult prayer. The problem is, the only thing he addressed is the use of the 7 rays within the Catholic Church. He used Wikipedia as his source. However, he conveniently ignored its origins and skipped right to the modern usage within the Catholic Church. What it actually says is that the 7 rays are seen early in the Western mystery traditions, such as Gnosticism and Mithraism, before becoming incorporated into the Catholic Church. And if you recall, Saint Germaine is known as the Shohan of the 7th ray. They're also a large part of Theosophy. This is an example of ignoring the Luciferian origins of problematic religious concepts. Even more, he created a strawman argument to avoid accountability for purposefully plagiarizing a Theosophist's channeled message. So why does this channeled message matter? 1, it was deliberate. And 2, because it links all of these light players together, Flynn with Q via the oath and confirming Q drops. And no, Flynn is not Q. There is no one person that is Q. It is a movement, an operation. Like V for Vendetta says, it is an idea. Anyone telling you otherwise is a sorry excuse for a researcher. There is Q and there are Anons. QAnon is a deep state psyop to confuse and discredit the, quote, movement. Q with Trump and the military. Q Trump military with theosophical ideas. Theosophy with Saint Germaine with Freemasonry. Freemasonry with the Universal Brotherhood with the mystery religion of the light being the false light of Lucifer.
2 Timothy 4, 3-4 states, For the time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but having itching ears they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions, and will turn away from listening to the truth and wander off into myths. And Matthew 7, 15-18 says, Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will recognize them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes, or figs from thistles? So every healthy tree bears good fruit, but the diseased tree bears bad fruit. A healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a diseased tree bear good fruit.
These light-sided characters may stand there and say things like, God wins, quote a scripture here or there, or give you hope for a promising future, but their actions are that of reciting mystic channeled messages, self-aggrandizement, shifting your focus to self-liberation, and achieving the synthesis of absorbing the last scraps of historic Christianity by replacing it with their mystic impostor religion of false light worship. Their fruit is Luciferian. You can't take anything at face value. Nothing is what it seems. If you are playing this dualistic game, the esoteric network will always be one step ahead of you to deceive you at every turn. And what's worse is that so many love playing the game. They're addicted to the fear or the false hope. They don't want to hear the truth. Unfortunately, that doesn't just apply to those who have chosen to reject Jesus. This applies to a majority of churchgoers who do not realize that their churches have been usurped for decades by the Brotherhood Network, who created and funded seminaries. The majority of pastors today may not be in an occult order, but they were taught doctrines by those who were. We have seen the end product of this generational infiltration with those who claim to love Jesus, but they may not realize how incompatible he is with this Luciferian theosophical movement of false light worship disguised as political vengeance. By being ignorant of the occult's belief systems and their polaristic doctrine, and believing if all that is bad and evil falls into the dark, then Jesus must be the light side. God is not on an axis of dark to light. By putting Jesus on the same axis as his adversary, you accept the Kabbalistic motto, Demon est Deus inversus, or the devil is God upside down. And that's the inconvenient reality. So to wrap up all we've discussed in this video, there is no darkness in God. He is not on the dark to light axis. He is holy. He doesn't have an axis of dark to light. He is the light of the world, and we do not need any light apart from him. As well as, in the end, at the highest esoteric levels, there is no black or white, no individual pieces working independently. It is simply the checkerboard floor. It is a completed piece. It's just a matter of moving the pieces around. The only way to win this game is to stop playing. No one has escaped being initiated into the mystery religion of the light unless they have been saved and born again by the living God and his Son, Jesus Christ. You have to get out of this dualistic Luciferian kingdom of Mystery Babylon. If you still have polarized thinking of we are the good, they are bad, it is us versus them, you're still in the game. Observe it. Don't emotionally invest in it. God has no pole, so our allegiance is not with either side. God is free from the dualistic chaos, and you can be too. I'll see you next time.
I'm really rich. I'm much richer than almost anybody. I am so smart. I am the smartest person. I'm one of the smartest people everywhere in the world. It's true. I went to an Ivy League school. I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words. People would say I'm like the super genius of all time. The super genius of all time. I'm a man of great common sense. I'm a very stable genius. I make great deals. I look great. The doctor said, man, you have the blood pressure of a great athlete who's 20 years old. I can be more presidential than any president that's ever held this office. Society loves me. Nobody builds walls better than me. Nobody knows the system better than me. Nobody knows politicians better than me. Nobody knows it better than me. Nobody has better toys than I do. Nobody loves the Bible more than I do. Nobody's stronger in Second Amendment than me. Who is better than me? I think I am actually humble. I think I'm much more humble than you would understand.
Jesus' suffering on the cross is a picture difficult to understand. He was betrayed by a friend, arrested and falsely sentenced to death. He was beaten and whipped. A crown made of thorns pressed into his head. Bearing the cross, he stumbled and staggered up the hill to Golgotha. Each step of the journey getting worse, spit on, cursed, and mocked. But Jesus never looked back. He kept going. Jesus could have avoided the cross, called down fire from heaven, or summoned legions of angels to rescue him, to save him. But Jesus was not interested in saving himself. He was all about saving you. Every detail of this torturous path to the cross was part of God's plan to bring you to him. We're all broken. We've all messed up and have all made wrong choices. And no one had to teach us as a baby about anger and selfishness. We just came out that way. Sort of a sin covering. But on the cross, with his blood he shed, the Bible says Jesus blotted out our record of sin, nailing it to his cross. The blood of Jesus washes away our sin covering. And his blood is our ticket to enter through a new door, a forever relationship door with God. So what do we do with this great news? The Bible says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. You see, it's not enough to believe in Jesus with just your head. You must believe with your heart. Now, there's just one person alone at the foot of the cross. It is you. What will you say to Jesus? Say, thank you, Jesus, for shedding your blood for me. I'm giving you my heart today, Jesus. I do believe you died for me and that you were raised from the dead for me. Please give me a new heart and a new life right now. God hears you, and he is answering your prayer. The love of God is being poured out within our hearts through the Holy Spirit.